Here we go, guys. We got an outstanding show for you guys tonight. Great week. Lots of news. Wasn't expecting this kind of news, especially after the PS5 Pro. We kind of go into, we're going into the holiday season here. We got the Game Awards. That struck up a nerve with a couple of people. We got Stalker 2 came out. We've got the whole Sony thing that's going on, okay, with who they may or may not acquire. That's why we have the great Kofi with us tonight. Okay, you have to bring in the professionals when we're going to talk about this. But guys, take a second, hit that like button. Go ahead and share it out with everybody. Got to tell you guys, going to be an outstanding show tonight. If you look at that amazing description right there, that description down there below, that's at least an A-. At least an A-. Give you a little synopsis of what we're going to talk about tonight. Don't forget, as you kind of shuffle in, to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Your name comes up in lights. Yeah, I got to talk to a couple of buddies of mine that do some great music behind the scenes. I'm going to get some music as we wait for the starting to the podcast. We got to get some music. I was watching some other great shows. They get some great beats. Got to get some good music before we while we're waiting for the show to get started. I got a couple people joining us as we get started here. Guys, please do hit that like button. I don't say it enough. I'm very excited about tonight's show. Got a lot of things to talk about. Nib, yes, we do hear you. I hope you hear us.
Yeah, I can hear you. Oh my God. I think the headset was doing a auto update. And it messed up my sync, and I was like, "What is going on?" Couldn't hear nothing.
I love it. Well, listen, this is what I tell people all the time. I love this about a show. I like the behind the scenes. Nib, people don't realize this is what we're trying to do. We were troubleshooting a little bit behind the scenes here, guys. Nib, great to have the headset is working. Everything is great. I'll go through a quick intro here because we got a great show to get started here. We got a few other people joining us as the show goes on. Want to say shout out to the great Crap Gamer. Crap's here. Crap, there's a lot of things that I have in the topics tonight that me and you used to talk about years ago, and here we are tonight. I'll bring them up because you know the topics, but I'll bring up some of the scenarios, and it's funny how like the past has come back to haunt us here. Crap, how you doing tonight?
Good. I didn't read your topics, but I'm sure I know about them. So. It's like, I know, man. I've been doing this for a long time with you, man. I know him, so yeah.
He does.
Definitely. But yeah, I mean, listen, I know the stuff that's going on because I cover it myself. So you know what I mean. So yeah, I definitely have some stuff to talk about. It should be a good show. I'm not going to hijack the opening like I did last week because I sounded like a dick. I sounded like a complete dick last week. I was like, man, who is that guy, right? But yeah, so it should be fun. I'm excited.
Oh, I love it. I absolutely love it, Crab. No, but you know what? That's the thing, though, Crab. You do know that you know the business. You keep your ear to the ground. So the fact that you didn't look at them, I still know that you know the topics. I know that you know the topics. Sure. So I'm not concerned in the slightest. Crap, great to have you here. Guys, by the way, let me know how the audio is. You guys remember from last week, we were kind of fine-tuning things. You guys in the audience have never really had the problem from what I'm hearing. You guys always say the audio is good, which I'm glad to hear. But we were having a problem here on the Discord side. Some people couldn't hear when I was talking. If there was two panel members having a discussion, it would zero out the microphone on my end. And I blame the mixer, but I think it's Discord. So we kind of played with a couple of the options. Let me know how the audio is, especially from the panel, because I had to tweak their side. So I want to make sure the panel's coming through sounding great. Ocelot says, what's up, Mooch? Panel and chat. Ocelot, great to have you here, buddy. Outstanding. Jackknife, I see Mary Wilcox. Guys, please do hit that like button. I don't say it enough. Maybe I'm saying it too often now. But nonetheless, guys, outstanding to have the great Kofi with us. The creative Kofi is back with us. We have been talking, me and him, for months. Let me tell you something about Kofi you don't know. He's athletic. This man plays a lot of sports. I keep saying to him, I'm like, Kofi, I got to get you on the show. And he says, Mooch, I can't. Football. Mooch, I can't. Basketball. Mooch, I can't. I don't know what was going to be next. I think he was going to say pickleball. I'm not sure. But Kofi, great to have you here, buddy. And honestly, we are going to talk about the possible Sony acquisition, and I couldn't think of a better time to have you back on the show. Kofi, how you doing tonight?
Man, I always appreciate your hype and your patience, man, because Mooch is so right. Thursdays have been such a conflict, but right now it is off season. I'm just going to try to stay in shape. But man, we get to talk about games, and I'm just excited to definitely talk about this topic with Kadokawa, and obviously the Game Awards. I think those are the two biggest things. I'm actually thinking about buying Balatro, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point down the line. So,
yes.
Yeah, man. Glad to be here.
Well, great to have you here. The great Death Singer, you guys. Death Singer, I think you're famous, but sometimes the audience thinks you're infamous. They absolutely love you. I don't know why anyone wouldn't. I love the takes you got. And tonight, I got to be honest with you, Singer, Last week was a very console-heavy kind of dialogue. We were talking a lot about PS5 Pro, etc., things that were going on there. But Singer, tonight we've got a real nice array of different topics, and me and you were having a great conversation just before the show started as well. But Singer, how you doing tonight? Great to have you back on the show.
Oh, I'm doing great, and everyone loves me.
Absolutely.
It's like if I told them the original Stalker released in 2007. And, it's never been a big seller.
Yes.
Everyone in the chat will be like, what? No way. And it's like, yeah, because everyone hyped up this game because it's coming to Game Pass and it's Xbox and the fanboys are pushing the narrative. When, in matter of fact, since 2007, here's a fun fact. The original Stalker, all-time high player count is 2,200 people. Since 2007. That's the first game.
Okay.
Right. So when people see the 100,000, that's actually fucking fantastic if you consider where the first game went. Like, that's actually a massive success. So
and don't get me wrong.
People need to understand the history of these games before you hype them.
It's a weird one though, because even though the peak player count is really low, they actually did announce decent sales. So the Koch Media or Koch Media, whatever you want to call it, announced that it had 50.
Sorry, it's immature.
OnlyFans Media announced that it had sold 15 million copies, which is actually decent.
The first one.
First one, across the.
Yeah, that's not bad at all.
Yeah, that is good considering it came out in 2007.
Mm-hmm.
And it was on Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. So,
so by 2010, it had sold 4.5 million. So it sounds like it had long legs, and obviously it had a lot of re-releases and things like that.
Well, it did, but it's like people come and go to the genre, but it's never been that. It took that long to do 15 million. So it's like when people look at what Stalker 2 did initially out of the gate and then criticize it. It's it was never a big seller anyway. It's just going to have really long legs like the first one probably. So it will be a success.
But I actually think it's done really well, because
it has.
If it has, because if it has, exactly. If it has 100,000 peak concurrent on Steam, you have to imagine it's sold at least 500 to 1 million, or something like that. Which I mean, to be fair though, I will say. This isn't as small as I've heard some pretend this is like an indie game, but GSC is actually 320 plus devs, and it's been in development 7+ years. Just for context,
that doesn't really.
For context, whilst making the game, their country kind of got invaded.
Obviously,
I can give them, kind of a pass on this one. It's like you have to flee your country in the middle of development.
I do think you have to take that into consideration. And we should put that right out there. And first and foremost, Singer, I'm glad you brought it up. They did go through a troubling time. So there's definitely that needs to be said. I do think when it comes down to it, though, and I'm glad that, Singer, you're playing it. Anyone else on the panel playing? I played about 2 hours, 2.5 hours so far, maybe 2 hours.
Same, yeah.
And, it's good. I love, you guys know I love the post-apocalyptic. I love that feel, right? You know what I mean? This isn't quite that, but it's for me, it really is, this wasteland. I love that. I love the resource gathering. I like that it doesn't hold your hand. I do think that the game probably could have waited a little bit longer. I really, really do. I just think that like when you say, I don't mind, like a lot of these people go, oh, there's Poppin', right? And then they'll show Poppin'. And there's like one tree that pops in out of like all of this lush, foliage. And I'm like, okay, that's not a big deal. But this one here, as I'm walking, like almost everything is popping in. And I am playing on the Xbox. Singer may have a different experience on the PC, and I'm sure he is.
I do. And I'm also, although I do have 1 or 2 issues, but I know if the devs don't do it, the modding community will fix it. I'm kind of just chilling right now because there's some issues, like there's a stutter, there's a bit of popping, but the thing I've had a few bugs. Like yesterday I had one where you have the electrical anomalies that are like floating around.
Yes.
There were none on my screen, no anomalies, no sound.
And I died.
I kept going forward and dying, and I was like, "What the fuck is going on?"
Like, there's nothing there.
I kept doing it, and then I thought, "Do you know what? This is bollocks. Like, I actually don't know why I'm dying." So I turned it off, restarted it, loaded it, and then the electrical anomalies popped up. I was like, "Oh, well, that would explain it then." I was like, "Why?" And then there was another thing. I don't know if this is like maybe you guys experienced as well. It might not have been a glitch. But you know, on the third array scan, like you have to go into a cave. Just before then, there's like a ship, and it's like derelict, and some invisible poltergeist thing kept throwing like cans and shit at me and killing me instantly.
Mhm.
And I was looking around for him everywhere. I climbed into the ship. I tried to look through the windows, and I couldn't see shit. And I was like, "Who is killing me? Like, why are objects falling out of the sky and killing me?" And I just couldn't see anything. So again, I restarted the game. I still couldn't see anyone. So I just assume it was like, I don't know, like an invisible poltergeist or some shit. Like, I'm not sure. I don't know if you guys had that as well.
Well, I mean, do you guys agree though? And crap, you know, I don't know if you got a chance to play it, but like, should the game have been delayed? The thing about it is it's just one of those things where I always attribute it. Nib, maybe you'll appreciate this, but crap, I want to hear your point. Is it's kind of like a restaurant, right? I would rather actually, if I had a customer or a table sitting out there and they've been waiting a long time for their meal, I'd rather wait until the meal was done properly than give them like undercooked chicken. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because at the end, you know,
I know what you're saying. For me, no, I never really had, like, this is the thing, right? I thought that the game would get good reviews, right? And it didn't really. You know what I'm saying?
No.
I thought that there would be like a sympathy review.
Yeah.
And not and there might have been some of that, but you know, for the most part, people were like, "Hey, it's broken, you can't play it," and things like that. But this has never been my type of game because it's like those Metro games, right? Which are nice looking games and they handle well, but they're just not fun, right? Like, I don't know. Like, there's
I'm
something
with
to be
you.
said for fun games, right? Like, that's, oh, let me scrounge for food and eat. Like, that's not fun to me in a game. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's like it's not on my radar or something. Even though I have Game Pass and I could play it, I'm not going to. You know what I mean? I don't think I'm the audience. I don't think I'm the audience for this game, and I think just because I'm at that point where I just want to have fun with games, and that's not fun to me.
Yeah, I mean, I that's fun. Crap, I get that, but I'm just talking about.
And the thing that I will point out is Phil Spencer was like, this game could be game of the year.
I know.
And, you know, I just will point out that really shows his lack of understanding.
His finger's not his finger has not been on the pulse for years, crap. And you could see that with what he said about Redfall, what he said about Crackdown 3, what he said about this. Like, there's the list of that goes on and on. But this is the one thing I'm confused on. And I guess I'll ask, and Kofi, if you've played, please chime in. I believe me, we're going to get, Kofi's going to be owning the second hour of the microphone. I think when it comes down to it, though, Singer, when you say you're enjoying it and this and that, I mean, I watched Skill Up's review where he says I cannot recommend right now, and he's playing on a 4090. He says he's playing with all the bells and whistles. He's got one of the most powerful PCs out there, and he went frame by frame, and he goes again. His pop in. He really did a great job of explaining it, even better than I. He goes through and shows the ground, and it's like every single bush, grass, strain, everything was popping in as he took a step, like all of it. And he's like, you know, the combat feels very wonky. We've all been in a couple of shootouts, right? With the other stalker camps out there, and you're behind a rock, and you go to, like, you know, normal game. You just kind of like peek out the side to go shoot, and it's not far enough. You're hitting the rock, or you're hitting the character and it's not registering at all. I mean, I was shooting right into the enemy's chest and nothing was happening. I mean, there's a lot of that going on, and that's PC. I think it's worse on console. And I see a lot of people being like, I love this game. This game's fun. This is right up my alley. And I'm like, that's fine. I think your game is going to be fun. I think it's going to be up your alley. I don't think it's there yet, Singer. So when you even were saying before the show that you're loving it, and that's great. That's great. I mean, but how?
The thing is, I'm loving it for what it is, but I also understand all the issues I'm having. but I also understand they'll get fixed one way or another. So if you asked me now, would I recommend the game? I would say no.
Okay.
I would not recommend it.
All right, well that's fair.
I've adjusted some settings to avoid some of the stuff, but it's like I had a feeling there'd be issues. So what I did was I was like, I'll play it through Game Pass, right? Then if the issues I believe are there, which evidently they are, then once stuff gets fixed, I would then purchase on Steam, right?
Mhm.
Because then I can own the game and do everything I want to do. Because I understand all the issues people had. Because I checked out the reviews and I'm like, okay, yeah, this is what it is. But I wanted to play the game to see what it's about. Because I loved the first one, so I'm like, okay, I know what kind of game I'm getting into. It's not for everyone, of course. You know, resource collection. It's why I love State of Decay so much. State of Decay's resource collection, you have to look for supplies. You might run out of food. You need to get ammo. I love all that kind of micromanaging and base building and resource collection. So this kind of stuff doesn't faze me. But yes, there is a ton of issues in the game.
I was going to say, so to the point you just made, I will just preface by saying I'm actually enjoying the game. It's far from like a Game of the Year contender. Like,
yeah,
I think
far from it. I wouldn't nominate it. Yeah, no.
I think like even without the issues, like the bugs and stuff, I would say the review scores are fairly accurate. But I was going to say, to your point about resources and stuff, the only thing I'm finding is that I actually don't need the resources. So every stash I find has like, you know, bread and vodka and food and stuff in it. And I must have done probably like a dozen plus stashes. And I just find everything I'm finding is redundant. I never actually need it. And, you know, it's like maybe I will use, I don't know, like 3 or 4 like med kits over a period of time. But I have like 28 or something. So it's like, you know, I'm just like, so the survival aspect, even though you can die really quickly.
Yes, you can.
What I find is that you die, but just restart, and then this time you don't take much damage, so you don't end up actually using your med kits, if that makes sense. So if it was like a case of I get injured, I have to run and hide, heal myself, go back into the gunfight and kill, it's not really like that. It's like if you do get clipped, you die instantly, and then you just reload, and then you kill them and don't take any damage. It's sort of one of those I'm finding. So a lot of the resources are just not getting used. So I think maybe like from like the fundamental side of things, there could be some balance tweaking to the actual gameplay systems and resource management. Because right now I feel like, and I did even hear another review say this. They said the survival stuff is really not that necessary. Don't get me wrong, it's hard, it's difficult. Like the enemies, the time to kill is so quick.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can't even see the enemy and they've like one shot you. So that stuff is cool. Like it's very threatening and it has this level of
but see, Nib, while you're saying that, the only reason I interrupt you is because you're making some great points. Is I wonder, is that deliberate or is that just bugged?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a difference there in like saying I'm enjoying it. It's like if I burnt your steak and you're like, I actually like it well done. Okay, thanks. But the table next to you doesn't.
The original was harder as well. This seems like even on normal, like very hard. But the thing I would say though, like I don't mind the difficulty per se, that how quickly they kill you. But I think the issue I have why it doesn't work is it's compounded with the wonky controls and aim acceleration, and there's like gamma issues. And I'm glad because I said it in my impressions. I put a tweet out with my impressions, and I'm having a good track record with this. But all the points I brought up, I think an hour later, Digital Foundry put out their analysis, and they brought up the same points. So at least I'm not crazy. I said about the gamma seemed off, and some of the like dynamic lighting wasn't working, like the flashlight doesn't leave shadows. I just thought that was weird because even PS3 games had that, and they confirmed that stuff. And I think the gamma was the main issue because when I was like I adjusted the HDR, I adjusted the brightness settings and all of that stuff. I adjusted the gamma, and still it was not quite right. And that what would happen is I'd get into firefights in the nighttime, and I don't know if it was supposed to be like this, but I couldn't see the enemy, but they would hit me in one kill, like a few shots, like 1 or 2 shots, and I'm like, that's not really fair because if I can't see them, how are they seeing me? Like they have pin precision aim from miles away, and I can't even see them on my screen. So I don't know if it's again to do with the gamma or just the sort of AI tweaking, but again, it boils down to it is fun, and there's cool, like the weapons sound amazing. There's a great atmosphere and mood. It's cool exploring the world and having that freedom, but I just think some of the fundamental sort of like gameplay balance tweaking is not quite there. Like it doesn't have that level of
sorry to cut you off, but I think they will do a bunch of patches, and there'll be a bunch of mods probably if they don't get around in time, because they probably know these issues are there. And also to the meta. See, the meta tracks because the Steam reviews are 77% positive. The meta is 74 for PC. So it's kind of similar. So it's like, yeah, everyone understands there's issues, but people like the game still. I mean, it's not 7 isn't a terrible game. I mean, if it didn't have the issues it had, then it would be a higher meta. I reckon it'd be like an 80. But it's certainly not a game of the year. I don't know why Phil said that statement, because it's like, this isn't that kind of game. This is just going to be a good game.
Well, the reason you're hearing that, though, Singer, as we welcome the great Mr. Badbit to the show, too.
What up?
What's up, Mr. Badbit? Great to have you here. I want to hear your take, too. I think the reason you're hearing that is, listen, everything in the world is to keep you linked and keep you subscribed to Game Pass. I mean, that's what you're going to hear throughout any type of corporate talk from Microsoft right now. That's where their bread and butter is. It's Game Pass. So what are they going to say? Hey, we have a possible contender here. Hey, we have a possible contender here. So what does that make you say? Oh, my 3-month is running out soon. You know what? I'll re-up it. I want to see if this is a game contender. This is something big. Let me see what's going on next. That's the whole thing with subscription services is what have you done for me lately, and what do you got coming up for me next? Mr. Badbit, we were going back and forth, and Singer making some great points, and Nib as well. Have you got a chance to play any Stalker 2 is the first question.
No, I haven't, but I would like to make a public declaration.
Oh, wow. Right on the show, Mr. Babbitt. That's
Please.
great.
Right off the rip.
Please.
They're called skeets, guys. We're skeeting over there on Blue Sky, okay? We're not posting. We're not tweeting. No, we're just letting all hang loose. We're skeeting. And we're skeeting until we can't skeet any longer.
That's an interesting term you picked there.
Actually.
That is an interesting term.
I've only made 4 posts, but yeah.
Fun over there.
What do you think?
Everybody's skeeting.
Mr. Babbitt,
chain skeets.
What do you think of the Stalker 2 game? I mean, are you excited?
No, I'm not a Stalker guy. Never was. But I give a lot to this studio because, again, like, you know, their country's being invaded by Russia. They're literally like they had to literally move their development studio partially to another country because, you know, their city was getting shelled. So like when I see people going, it's a little buggy, it's rough, whatever have you, it's like, man, I mean, if I was taking mortar fire, I wouldn't be so, you know, invested in my work. You know what I'm saying? I'd be a little distracted.
Yeah, we were talking about that for sure. Well, that's the thing. So, but Mr. Badbit, that's fine. I actually want to build off of that. What I want to say is, I completely agree with you. I saw somebody in the chat, and shame on me for not, guys, but, you know, put your name in the chat, though. By the way, shout out to the great Jimmy Harrison. He says, always good to see you, brothers. Jimmy, great to have you here. The great Jimmy Harrison's here. Super chat's working as well. It's a miracle. Mr. Badbit, the thing about it is, though, you know, they said this fall was cluttered, so we're going to move Avowed to February. Yeah. Why not let Avowed come out? Allow the people that are developing Stalker 2 some more time, because if anyone else has deserved it, they deserve it.
I mean, that's a great question. At the end of the day, it all comes down to money, right? So it's like, you know, Microsoft, someone correct me if I'm wrong. They're not the publisher of Stalker 2, correct?
No, I don't believe so, right?
They self-published.
They self-published.
Jesse Game World, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so they probably got some outside money going, okay, guys, we need to get this out now.
Yep, yeah.
And that's probably the thing that's pushing it. It's not so much like Xbox. It's more like, okay, well, shit. We like
Microsoft
our investors
paid
say
them for exclusivity for a 3-month period.
And I mean, that's the other thing to consider. It's like, you know, as a developer, you're getting your money when you how you can, and like guaranteed money is always good money. So I don't know, man. I mean, personally, I wouldn't have put Avowed in holiday regardless if this game was out here. You know, it's still a really new IP. So you probably, I mean, but then as I say that, it's in February.
Yeah.
And now February is like cluttered as all hell. So
yeah,
I don't know. But I feel like one more delay would probably be best. Get that thing in March. No one else is around you.
Almost everything that Microsoft has released or been part of should have been delayed recently.
Literally everything, crap.
Yeah. Literally, everything. I mean, I can't think of a single thing. I mean, I liked Starfield, but even that, I mean, that would have been better off delayed with, all the stuff that they updated now. With all that stuff. If they would have had all that stuff ready to go, then also that the like the DLC they released, way too late. You know what I mean? You released that earlier so that people don't go back. You know what I mean? Like it's weird to me.
It's weird when you have
because I like Starfield, but I don't want to go back to it because I don't want to relearn how to play the game. So I'm in a weird spot. So you know what I mean? It's like they've done this stuff where I think they've released some good games, but they haven't released the great games or the finished games that a lot of people are expected them to release.
It's interesting,
and I think it's still go for it, Nib. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, because I don't know if you guys have read. I will say I think Hellblade 2 came out really polished. I didn't have any issues with that game as far as I can remember.
Yeah.
But Microsoft Flight Sim, the new one, even the Xbox journalists and stuff, from Xbox era, they say some of them have been playing it apparently 10 years and it's 10 hours and it's only worked 10 minutes of those 10 hours.
Yeah,
that's right.
Because I think there's some cloud syncing issue where the data that it is receiving from the cloud for the asset and GPS streaming isn't working and hasn't worked since it launched. So basically you can't fly in the game at the moment. So they launched a game where you actually can't play the game. So it's an interesting one. So that's been a disaster.
Yeah. But then on top of that, you're also launching, a Diablo expansion, which was amazing. You also got Call of Duty this year as well, which I have some complaints. But those are two really huge. The spawns are just totally effed.
They are very questionable. Very questionable.
And the maps are it sucks is you have such a good foundation in that game. Let me just derail for just a second. Great foundation, omni movement, ooey.
Yeah.
Then you get to these maps, and I listen. I love you developers, and understand that I say this because you've induced rage into me multiple times. You had 4 years to make this. 4 years to make good levels. What happened? Red card? Someone thought red card was going to be a good idea for a map?
Yeah.
Let's get back to the 3 lanes, okay? Let's get back to 3 lanes, not whatever the hell your kid drew in kindergarten, you're going to say. Babylon, feasible.
Yeah.
Also, Nuketown, overrated.
Stop with
it's
Nuketown.
Not shipment. It wants to be Rust so bad, and it's not.
Just stop with Nuketown at this point, please. I've taken it off the quick match. I can't even take it anymore.
Yeah, Nuketown is officially caught up to what we are doing, our year. So I mean, maybe it's time to let it go.
But bad. I would say, to its credit, I actually think the campaign.
How many years is it? 3 years. 27 years of playing Call of Duty, give or take. It's been, original Modern Warfare, World at War. They have never, ever done spawns correctly. Every single game, there has always been something fucked up. My favorite thing is always on Nuketown, you get the throwing axe, you throw it at the spawn, and you're guaranteed a kill. You just throw it. As soon as you spawn in the game, throw the axe over there, get a kill. And I'm like, Nuketown in of itself, see, Nuketown was good, but with all this omnidirectional movement and stuff, Nuketown is just too good. The combat is just too fast. The game moves too quickly for the small map. Because what you do is you charge through, you kill them all, you get to the other side.
Yeah.
Mm.
Then you come back to the other side, and now the spawns are flipped, and now I spawn, and then an enemy spawns on top of me.
You're too quick.
Yeah.
And I die.
But
and I'm like,
to jump on what Nib was saying, the campaign this year was spectacular. And it's
phenomenal.
Probably the best that they've made.
I think so too. Yeah.
It's at least in the top 3. It's incredible.
I fall victim though. Nib, real quick, because I want to hear what you got to say about this. Nib, I fall victim to this, and crap knows he's known me for a very long time. I start the damn campaign. I got to the first area there that's wide open. I've done almost everything on that map. If I have not even finished that, you know where you go to the desert area and you have to like stop the Scud missiles. You have to stop those 3. And I do all of them. I have like OCD. So if there's a question mark or something that I drive by and it pops up, I gotta kill it. I gotta find out what it is. All right, I'm past that part. My whole point is like it's just so routine at this point. It's just, I used to joke with crap all the time back in the day. Some of the guys have been following us for a long time. Like, it's like, follow Captain Stu Nuts. You're just kind of following someone around all the time. It's like, make sure you go over here and then grab that. And then you come back and it's like, oh no, they saw us. And it's like, okay. And then it's so, like, don't get me wrong. The story, I think, this year so far has been more intriguing than others. So that I'll give you guys. But the gameplay, it's just, it seems very, that's mundane.
I didn't find that. Like, I actually thought the diversity of mechanics was actually strong, and engagements and set pieces, because like I was doing stuff in this Call of Duty that I don't remember doing in another Call. I literally at one point had a
mission,
casino, and even little things phenomenal, and even little things like I had a notepad and I was taking down notes for the puzzles, like the order of the piano keys, and then going into that Russian lab and doing the order of
I know what you mean with the piano keys. I'm not at that far yet, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, so I was like, and I was like, this is great. Like, for a Call of Duty, I'm actually exercising a modicum of brain power, and I'm actually having to, do some puzzles.
Maybe I'll keep going with it, Nib. I mean, but the thing that kind of got me was everybody was saying what you were saying to me before I started playing it, and then we get to that part where it opens up, and you're in that, you're in the, I believe the name of the map is Payback. Yeah. And you're in that mansion, and it opens up again. But that's kind of how Cold War was, right? And that I was like, okay, we've been down this before.
Have you done the Bill Clinton or casino level yet?
Not the casino one, no. The Bill Clinton one, yes.
Did you not enjoy that then?
It was okay. It was, again, I wasn't like wowed by. You're talking about the one where you're at the event and you have to speak to the senator's wife and kind of do that favor?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I mean, if you choose to, there's multiple ways.
You have options. Sorry, you do have options. No spoilers.
So I personally really like that. I think what I find is like, and this is the case for with me. What's it called? Phantom Liberty as well. I personally just love espionage type games where you're more like 007 than you are like a just let's go on a killing spree sort of thing. So that side of it I really enjoyed. I enjoyed the fact that it lowered the pace, just let me absorb the world, the characters, use my sniper rifle. It almost reminded me of GoldenEye at some points, where I was just like, okay, like headshotting about people, and like you said, the casino level was phenomenal. Like such a incredible art direction and visuals, the build up, how you implement each of the characters in each of their stages, and it all crescendos at the end. Like, there's some really standout moments in this. Like, I'm not saying the whole campaign was like that, which is why I didn't score it higher. I think I gave it an 8.5. But there are certain set pieces.
Well, that's still very good, Nib.
8.5. Super high. Like, I was not expecting to enjoy it as much as I did. Like, I genuinely loved it, and I will definitely play it again. Maybe. Like,
well, listen, I love a good conversation on Call of Duty, but Mr. Babbitt, you were kind of just invoking, like you were saying, this year, was good. So you give Call of Duty it's not, and that's fine. But Call of Duty is available everywhere. I mean, and you saw this the play count on PlayStation still the highest. Actually, PlayStation, I think 26. Nib has the numbers all the time. Correct me where I'm wrong here, Nib. 26% higher than Modern Warfare. It did well across the board. But I mean, I think overall, talking about Game Pass for 2024 so far. Okay, if you want to go ahead and say Call of Duty, Mr. Babbitt, I'm there with you. Hellblade 2, I know that Nib liked it. I don't know if Nib was on hallucinogens at the time. I think that that was a very, very mundane, also boring experience. I mean, listen, every sequel to every game is always like the other game, so I'm not going to sit here and say that, right? I get it. But when it's like, I mean, that was like a carbon copy. I was like, okay, all right. Because Crap said that to me. He goes, I hope it's not going to be looking puzzles again. I go, Crap, it's going to have some of that. But I said, with the money and the time and the resources, I said, before they were barely putting things together to get that first one out, this one was a better looking first one. And actually, I think it regressed a little in the combat. So
yeah. So the combat is definitely mechanically not as competent, because I actually played them back to back. and I 1000% do agree that the combat is more fun and engaging in the first one.
Yes,
but it's far more cinematic and like theatrical in the second one. So it's more just like the experience of it.
Nib, can I tell you a funny?
Like playing a CGI movie.
Can I tell you something funny though? The ironic part of the statement that the audience needs to hear is one of the Mr. Babbitt. I think you'll remember this. Yeah. One of the critiques of the first one was the combat. So that was a critique, but then after playing the second one, everyone was like, "I wish it was even that." So that's the thing. So I think that was a natural regression there. Yes, Call of Duty, if you want to give it credit there. The other games, there was no other games that really came out that were massive. Of course, there was third-party deals. Got it. Not saying anything. But now, I had a great conversation with somebody on Twitter. It had been about a month and a half ago or something. And they said, Mooch, you got to understand something. You got Stalker 2 coming out. You got Indiana Jones. Listen, I said, he goes, you're going to have this is going to be a great end of the year for Game Pass. And I said, you know what? I said, he might be onto something. But Stalker comes out, and yes, everything was, I think it needed more time to cook. They had to give it a little more time in the oven. That comes out, it's sitting in the mid-70s. I haven't looked at the Metacritic. Listen, if you're enjoying it, I don't care what the Metacritic is. But when the game has pop-in, and it has wonky kind of mechanics, and things are, like you say, enemies are killing you when they're not even there, like Nib was saying, and I had experienced as well. And now we're really down to, Indiana Jones. And I think Indiana Jones is also going to kind of run into some lower, I don't think it'll score in the 70s. That'll probably, I'm thinking low 80s. But I think overall, that's the problem I kind of have here. That's kind of where I wanted to go with the next subject for you guys is, I'm seeing the gaming media. Stalker hasn't been out for 48 hours yet. And they're like, Avowed! You guys remember, one of you guys had to be on the show. Crap, I know you remember this. Like, the minute Hellblade didn't do well as far as critically acclaimed, it did well on Meta. But then it didn't, no one was talking about it. People were kind of bashing it. They're on to the next game. And then it was the next game. And then it's the next game. And it's like, we're not even 48 hours in the Stalker 2, and everyone's like, I played Avowed. It was great. Wait till you guys play Avowed. It's always on to the next one with Game Pass and the media sometimes. And I'm like, can we talk about and play like Stalker 2 for a little bit? Why are we already talking? We're talking about Avowed. We're talking about it's immediately onto it's always with Game Passes. What's next? Don't worry about that. Don't worry about what you're playing. You don't like it. You don't have to like it. You don't have to like it. There's something coming next. You know what I mean? So I'm wondering, is that something, Mr. Babbitt? I'm noticing that. Like, we haven't even gotten 48 hours. There's people in the Sony camp that still are sending out pictures, loving games that have been out for quite some time. I still see GT7. I see Ratchet and Clank. I see Stellar Blade. I see Final Fantasy VII. I see these games all year long being talked about and replayed. And it's like, we can't even get 48 hours in the Stalker 2, which I enjoyed Death Singer's take, by the way. On him enjoying it, and we're already on to Avowed. The media is already talking about Avowed. We're moving on.
Listen,
what do you
I
think?
don't think anybody's talking about Lego Horizons. They should. That game's real pretty.
That's why I love Mr. Badbit. He's great.
I mean, you just described
I'm not even playing it.
They're like, listen, who cares about the next thing? Just consume the thing. Like,
just consume it.
Yeah. Just consume it. It's like, come on. Just do it.
That was great.
No, listen. I'm going to say something pretty. This will get me fanned a little bit. This year's been a slow year. It's been slow for everybody, right? It hasn't been the biggest year for video games. I know. We got
No way.
Game of the Year.
No way. This year is
keep up.
Listen, I'm not a JRPG guy. I get a Final Fantasy metaphor, like all that, and I'm trying to get I'm dipping my toes into it. Don't get me wrong, but it wasn't no 2023 in comparison. Listen, I take a look at you relax, everybody. Relax, settle down. Didn't say it wasn't good. I just said it was a little slow.
I think
Game of the Year, Elden Ring Shadow of the Year Tree. It should be up there in Game of the Year. Tell me different. Anyway.
I actually prefer this year to last year, I think.
Oh,
I
really?
actually do too.
Yeah.
I do.
You guys are crazy. Baldur's Gate came out last year. All right.
Yeah.
The thing is, I absolutely love Baldur's Gate, but it's like this
Alan
year
Wake 2?
I've had so many good fucking games this year. Metaphor. I've had Metaphor, Persona 3 Reload, Like a Dragon Infinite.
Well, fine. It was a slow year for Joe, who likes games that aren't turn-based. One would assume.
There's a lot of good action RPGs as well.
Oh, what do you got,
Guys,
Kofi?
I'm not in the weebs, okay?
Have you played?
I've tried
Wukong?
Metaphor. Metaphor is a good time. The guy that's doing the little like that when you're doing your battles, dope. He's awesome. Keep the Channing guy. Put Channing guy in more stuff.
Have you
But,
played
yeah.
Black Myth Wukong or Final Fantasy Rebirth?
Rebirth, listen. I'm still in the golden saucer. It took me out. Too many goddamn mini games. I'm going back. I got the Pro. I'm going back. Black Myth Wukong, what came out right after Black Myth that took my I think I had an Outlaws.
Space Marine 2.
Space Marine 2.
Yeah,
I think I had an Outlaws code. That's what threw me off. But like Black Myth was fine. It's sorry, when I say fine, people are gonna yell at me. It's very good. I need to go back to that as well. You know what? It was a better year than I think. You said Space Marine. I like Space Marine quite a bit. But but that being said, it's just like, it's just been, it's been a good year. It just hasn't been the year, at least for me, that hasn't like blown my socks off.
I think 2025 is going to take the cake.
Absolutely. There's going to be a ton of awesome stuff.
But I do have to say, Mr. Babbitt, it's funny. The whole panel disagrees with you. I guess I won't say that I agree with you wholeheartedly, because I think 23 was very good. I don't think it was as bad, but I do see where you're coming from. It depends on the type of gamer you are. A lot of people give Black Myth Wukong like a ton of love, and I kind of am at the point with that game where it's like, especially further in the game, I'm playing some of these enemies almost 5-10 times, then I beat them, right? And I'm like, all right, I'm kind of like, I want more in the world than just mini boss, big boss, mini boss, big boss. And I felt like that started to get repetitive a bit. I just beat, what was it, 2 weeks ago, I beat Silent Hill 2. I'm waiting for the pro patch, the correct pro patch to come in, and then I'll go back and get the platinum.
Of Silent Hill 2?
I loved it, and I truly adored it, and it's an homage to the original, and it took a step forward. I thought Bloober Team, which I never thought this sentence would ever come out of my mouth. I thought Bloober Team did a great job. They did an outstanding job. They did such a good job. I'm excited to see their next venture on their own, their an original IP, and I'd like to see them remake something else, maybe in the Silent Hill world or something like that. I mean, I really, really, really enjoyed Silent Hill 2, and maybe it's because I forgot how good that game really was. But I mean, it's just, they did a hell of a job. I thought they did a hell of a job.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just because I played so much Balatro this year that nothing is really. I mean, let's recognize the one true king.
So I relate, but it wouldn't be in my game of the year list.
Oh, it's so game of the year for me. It's disgusting. 143 hours if my PlayStation 5's time clock is correct, and it's not. But 143.
What's your highest score for a hand?
Oh man, I'm dyslexic. A lot of digits though. we're talking like a couple of mil. Yeah,
it was a couple of mil. Yeah,
I think I got to like. I need to open it back up. I think I got to like the black deck. I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
like generally your genre.
So
it's weird because I have the black deck and the one you get for beating the round on the black deck, but I only have like, I don't know, 10 hours in it or something. I don't know. Maybe I picked up on the combinations pretty quick, but like I think my highest.
Do you play poker for reals?
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
See, I'm not a poker player in the slightest.
Yeah.
So I walked in going like, I don't know, what's this, blackjack?
Oh, okay.
And like, so I had to literally learn poker as I was going. But I was like, that's how good the game is. It's like I will play a shittier game or learn a shittier game to get to learn Balatro. God, I love that game. You're right. You know what was I saying? It's a slow year. It was a good year for games.
Do you like Queen's Blood?
Queen's Blood is terrific. I can't wait for them to like put that as like a standalone experience. Queen's Blood's good. I genuinely need to go back to Rebirth because my co-host is absolutely in love with it. We got our own awards that we need to do. So I know Rebirth is on the docket for me to beat. I think I just got burnt by the amount of mini games and the fact that this is a me problem. I was trying to go for the plat in this game.
Yeah.
And then you met. Yeah, then you met the what is it? The sit-up guys, the workout dudes.
Oh, like, yeah. That's not even the worst.
And when
mini games that really make me
Dude,
Just focus on the main
Kofi,
campaign.
when I heard that
was
wasn't
what I
even the
was
worst, I was like, and I'm not platinuming this. This sucks. Like this is dreadful. But no, I do need to go back to it because I was enjoying my time with it, other than like it's continuously stopping. Though like Astrobot is truly incredible. Like that is
that's my game of the year, I think. Yeah.
I think truthfully, I'm dancing around Balatro and Astro. I think they've been really good. When it comes to like the Game Pass question, truthfully, because I'm a PlayStation guy, I don't know what's going on in Xbox realm most of the time anymore. So like, I hope they're having fun. I'm not a Game Pass person, so like, I hope they're digging it. I've heard from Indie has me hyped, and Indie is something that now that I know it's coming to PlayStation, I'll wait for it. But I love Indiana Jones. I love machine games, and when one of these previews kind of sold it as like a Hitman like game, I was like, man, sold. Like that could be my game of the year right there because I love Hitman. So yeah,
interesting. Okay, no, that's fair.
Mooch.
Go ahead, Singer.
The thing about the Game Pass thing is, I think Game Pass had a really good year. Now there is a caveat. I play a very particular type of game. So when I look at what I played through Game Pass this year, I had Persona 3 Reload, fantastic game. Right? Now, Age of Mythology Retold. Now, I know people will be like, I don't even know what the fuck that is.
Yeah.
Right, but that awesome game in Game Pass.
Amazing game.
Frostpunk 2 came to Game Pass. Fabulous game. I got Stalker 2 in Game Pass. I got Black Ops 6 in Game Pass, and then potentially Indiana Jones. So this year for me, even though I'm not paying for the Game Pass, I got gifted 2 years. It's a great. See, the thing is, you do that, but you don't understand how good Frostpunk as a game is. And Age of Mythology is an old school game, but if you're
Age of Mythology is my jam. When like the rumor has it is that like Age of Empires is coming to PlayStation because we saw like a PlayStation emblem in one of the tests or whatever. Dude, I'm so day one Age of Empires on my PlayStation. Oh, someone check on me. When that day comes, I'm gonna ski all over the place.
You know what's crazy about that? People, I guarantee you. Right, watch this. When it gets announced, watch everyone go, oh, it's only ever been on Xbox and PC. It's never been on PlayStation. Age of Empires 2 released on the PS2. Age of Empires 2 Age of Kings. So yes, Age of Empires has been on PlayStation.
The more
I
you
know
know,
because I played it.
That's great.
So if you see people go, oh, it's an Xbox game and it's coming, no, it's been on PlayStation years ago. You're just too blind to notice. It's been a multiplayer. It's mainly been a PC game, but it's been on other consoles before.
I was playing it on my gateway. I wasn't looking at any other thing at that time. You kidding? I was 11. I was on my gateway, giving my viruses, my computer viruses, my viruses computers.
Yeah, I think you guys make good points. And don't get me wrong, Deathsinger, there's an absolute ton of gamers that love the games that you love, and I think that's why you still see a steady number of those folks that are subscribed to Game Pass, but you don't see the numbers skyrocketing. And the reason that they're not skyrocketing is when you look at it, you have Starfield was supposed to be one of their largest, right? Call of Duty also supposed to be, and I'm sure we're going to see a number spike of some sort, but I don't think it's going to be the number spike that Microsoft was even kind of counting on. And I think at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, like, what do they have coming out? And Avowed's not going to move the needle. South of Midnight's not going to move the needle. And that's what we know that's coming so far next year, right? So I think at the end of the day, it's not that Game Pass is... Listen, Game Pass to me is just like, I think even like Phil said it on console, kind of stagnant. Now, of course, it's going to see a spike with Call of Duty, but that spike will it'll be a sine curve. It'll literally go up and then it'll go back into a valley again. Once people have beaten the game, whether it's campaign or they've played with their friends till like February, March timeframe, and then they'll not subscribe again if they're there only for Call of Duty. A lot of people that want to play Call of Duty nonstop, they're just going to buy the game. Like, you're not going to stay subscribed for $19.99 a month to play something that you love for 12 months. You're just going to go buy the game. And, whether it be Xbox, PlayStation, PC, etc.
Well,
and
the numbers are kind of showing that.
Here's the thing. I'm going to get killed for this. I'm going to get killed by the chat, but I don't care. Right?
Go for it. Don't be afraid of it.
What
are they going to do to you?
I love Game Pass. I like in Game Pass the screen. Now, hear me out. Okay, yeah, you can see where this is going, right? Now, the big games always come out kind of crappy into Game Pass. But the smaller games, the AA games, the smaller games like the Frostpunk, Siege of Mythology, they always come out fantastic. And I liken it to Square Enix because I absolutely adore the smaller games like Triangle Strategy, etc. But their big games, kind of mid, kind of ass. So I know I'm going to get crucified for it, but it is what it is. I liken the two to each other. They make fantastic AA smaller games. Game Pass supplies that. But when their AAA games come out, kind of ass.
Let me tell you.
Well,
I saw those Avowed screenshots. Whoo-wee, they look pretty good. I want to hear about it.
Yeah, but the thing is,
get excited
but
for,
Mr.
for
Badbit,
Xbox.
Mr. Badbit, we have to take a second though. We got to. Did you say Fable or Avowed?
Both. They
Okay.
both look
Fable,
good.
Fable, different conversation. Don't want to go. We can go there in a moment if you want to. But like, I'm not gonna lie to you. I was really kind of amped for Stalker 2. Seeing the trailer that came out a week or two ago, seeing the screenshots, I was like, wow, this looks pretty freaking good. The game doesn't necessarily look on Xbox Series X as good as it does on the pictures in the launch trailer. And listen, even SkillUp, who you had a 4090, it don't look like that. So when you say Avowed looks good, the one thing I saw from a lot of people that played Avowed, they thought Avowed looked good, but they said that the combat was, quite easy. It was simple. It was very simplistic. So, and that was just one reviewer that played it recently. But I'm just saying, go ahead, Nib. I know you were going to say. So the pictures, my point, don't really sell the game as much as it used to anymore.
All I was going to say is I hear like a lot of people say like, it's the PC version of Stalker 2 is way better looking. But actually, if you watch the Digital Foundry and other analysis, between the fidelity mode on Series X and the PC, it's not actually a big difference.
Really?
In fact, sometimes it's hard to actually notice some of the difference. So it's not like you have path tracing on the PC and you don't have it on.
Okay.
In fact, a lot of the issues that are in the console versions, like the lack of dynamic light sources from like Fire and from Torchlight and stuff like that, all of that stuff actually exists in the PC as well. Because I thought, I'm really missing out here. I probably need the PC version or something. And then I saw the analysis and I was like, oh shit, like all of that stuff is missing on the PC as well. So if you see like versus the performance mode on the Xbox, it's quite a big difference. The grass and the foliage and the way it pops in, and it's very smeary, and there's like some lighting issues and errors and stuff. But the fidelity mode is actually really solid, and it's actually quite close to the PC version. At least, like obviously the PC version is going to have better resolution, etc. But there's not these like tentpole features and graphic settings that you can't get on the console. So I don't think it is going to be a world apart the way some have kind of described.
Okay, Kofi, I want to ask Kofi. Kofi, there was some very dangerous verbal abuse coming from a great singer. A singer was very harsh on Square Enix, Kofi. I don't know if you got a chance to hear it. He was saying basically, and singer, am I quoting you here correctly? I'm not quoting you, but at least paraphrasing you correctly here. That you were saying that you think that some of the smaller to mid-level games of Square Enix are better than their AAA big blockbusters.
That is absolutely correct, and I stand by that statement.
Kofi, if we could get your take on this.
At first, I was going to rage against you, but I had to take a moment to think about it. And all of the AAA games, I'm going to include maybe the last few years, right, when they got rid of a lot of that, Western branch. I kind of agree with you. I'm going to leave Hitman alone. Now, something like... I'm gonna leave. I haven't played the series yet, so I can't criticize them. But it's Life is Strange. I hear a lot of people really love Life is Strange.
Yeah.
Now Rebirth and Remake, I love those games. I mean, they mean everything to me. I'm not sure if you're being critical of that one. Not the biggest fan of Kingdom Hearts, to be honest.
Kingdom Hearts is shit. We can all say that.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
I'm gonna leave that alone. I'm
careful,
not
Mr. Babbitt.
No,
be careful.
Kingdom Hearts fans fun. Find me in the streets. You're nerds. Yeah.
When you look at some of these middle budget type games, he's right. I love them. Romancing Saga is something I just received. I'm really looking forward to playing that. I love Star Ocean. Of course, we just had the remake of 2, but of course, Star Ocean 6, I really loved. I even love Star Ocean 5, which I don't think a lot of people really even care about that game. And there's a lot more. what is it called? Seiken Densetsu, which is what is
I mean, Dragon Quest 3 HD just
yes,
came out.
Dragon Quest
I'm
3
looking
HD
right at
just
it. Very
arrived.
excited.
But what's Seiken Densetsu? What's the
Path of
Mana.
the Goddess. Oh, no, never mind. Fuck me.
What's the American name? Mana. Trials of Mana, right?
Trials of Mana.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Mana
I'm sorry,
games.
I couldn't remember the name. That game just arrived at my doorstep. So I've got all these games I'm super excited about that kind of falls into the category you're describing. Not AAA budget, probably not a lot of commercials or advertising. But please don't talk bad about my Rebirth. That's the only game
No. Here's the thing. When I think about it, I was like, the Mana games are great, and then I was looking, and then it was like the Dragon Quest game. Okay, cool, Dragon Quest. But the thing is, it's like all these smaller games, Octopath Traveler. Like, I just think
That's
they
not a
do
smaller
these
game,
games.
dude.
Well, hey,
Well,
listen,
I mean,
that studio's about to be a
if you compare-
PlayStation studio.
Yeah, that's not a small game.
I mean, to be fair, Tactics Ogre Reborn was a good game. Valkyria Elysium, Dialfield Chronicle. Like, see, outside of like Forspoken, trash, right? I mean, I probably won't get killed for that. Final Fantasy 16 is but the thing is, I think they just do those smaller games better for me than they do like the HD 2D style game. I just think they do that better than their AAA offerings for me.
Mhm.
So, that's why I made the comparison to Game Pass, because the Game Pass, the smaller games, Frostpunk, Age, and Mythology, like they're not going to be big sellers, but they're top quality games. But the AAA games, I feel, let down the whole Game Pass situation, because they, like Starfield, they come out a bit broken. They should have been in the oven more. Flight Simulator's completely busted. Like Hellblade 2 was a tech demo. Like, it's that kind of thing.
Bad. Everyone hates on Hellblade 2, and I enjoy it.
Listen, I like the first one. I think I'm gonna like the second one because the PlayStation.
Nib, here's the thing.
Buying my time.
You said something tonight that at least now I can understand why you like to. You played them back to back.
Yeah,
and let's be honest, neither of them were they weren't very long, right? Which I'm not knocking, by the way. But I'm saying, so you played through Senua's story, and you did it in one swoop, and I can see that actually being quite pleasurable. I really can, and because that makes sense, right? You back to back, the games aren't that long. I think combined, unless you 100%ed them, you probably played about 14 hours, and that's fine, by the way. And that's why you enjoyed it. Nib, I really think if you were in my seat, and I will speak for the great Mr. Badbit, I enjoyed the first one, and the second one just kind of felt, when I say it was copy-paste, it was just, there wasn't enough there. Was it visually a masterpiece? Yes. But I think we've seen, right? Not all games. Look at the games, some of the games that are being nominated, some of the games that people love and adore. They're not always the most beautiful games. You know what I mean? They don't have to be, you don't have to because just being beautiful, it's a shallow game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It could be a shallow game. And that's what that kind of felt like there. But you going from 1 to 2, I think that's why you have more admiration for it, Nib.
Yeah, I mean, like, I can imagine it feeling like a rerun if you have a gap in between.
Yeah.
But obviously, I saw the technical and narrative and character progression, because the first one is more of a mental health exploration, and the second one is more of her it's more of like a Viking adventure with the mental health stuff in the backdrop, right?
Yep.
So she's kind of finding herself and what she means in this world, as opposed to fighting the demons in her head. Again, there is some of that intertwined as well, but it's a slightly bigger adventure, and I personally enjoyed that. And I do think the ending really soured the story, and there's a lot of plot holes. I've had like long conversations about this with people, and we've tried to find out the explanations, but we couldn't come to we couldn't fix the plot holes. And try as we might, even someone who I was speaking to who like knows all of the history of this stuff and like even down to every individual giant that they put, why they chose the locations, what the symbolism was, and all this other stuff. But there are some issues with the story. But I would love to speak to like a developer or one of the writers on this. But that aside, the ending aside, yeah, I still enjoyed it. And even like the puzzles and stuff, yes, it is mechanically very limited.
Yeah.
But it was still a bit of it. And the visual side of things, like when you do the like turning the world and the rooms upside down and you have the shape shifting, and I really enjoyed that. It kind of reminded me a bit of like Quantum Break and Control, but in a more like narrative visual spectacle kind of way. And again, I get it. Like I'm not berating anyone for disliking it, because especially if you are someone who's like a gameplay and mechanics like heavy, you know, and you lean on that kind of thing, this isn't for you. This is a very experiential type game. I would say it's more like art than it is almost a game, but obviously intertwined.
You know, and it's interesting, just to go full circle back to Stalker 2, and then I'm going to go to the great Kofi here, because I do want to talk about the possible Sony acquisition and what's going on in the news here.
I can't wait for the chat to boo me on that one.
Well, Mr. Babbitt.
Let me tell you, the trophy room. Oh my god,
yeah.
My own people turned against me.
Yeah,
man.
guys, get your bourbon ready for Mr. Badbit's take. You're not going to like it. But let me say this much real quick. I do want to say, so Singer, just to refresh here, I looked real quick, Singer. You tell me if I'm right. I saw like 72,000 people currently on Steam playing Stalker 2, you know, dropping a bit. And this is prime time. It's 8 o'clock. I would assume that the number, you know, some people say, well, you're looking at the wrong time. I don't know when the right time is to look, by the way. I would assume 8 o'clock Eastern. You know, that's between 5 and 8 here in the States. If you're looking Pacific to Eastern time zones, seems like the heart of America's gaming and getting home from work. So I see that number dropping. When people say, hey, you know what we need to do? We need to give them some time. They're going to have more patches. There's more patches on the way. They're going to fix it. Do you think, not you, Singer, do you think the majority of gamers in 2-3 weeks will come back to this game? Or do you think they're going to move on?
They'll move on. But I think the people who like the game know the game, and you know, they understand it. They'll stick around. Like, this game will have a community. This game isn't gonna die because of this. People are gonna, okay, I'll just wait for the patches, wait for the mods, whatever have you, and keep it pushing.
Yep.
But it's gonna stick around because that's what the first one did. It built a good cult following, so people understand. And I'm not worried about the numbers, because this happens all the time. Steam has a blockbuster when the game first releases, the number peaks. But then it's also the middle of the week, and you have to wait till the weekend to see how it shakes out, because games have done this a lot. They release in the middle of the week, the numbers are like so-so. Then when you get to the weekend, the numbers peak up more. So we'll have to see how it goes.
Great point.
But this number, even the 117,000 that it peaked at, that is fantastic for this kind of game. That is, if I was in their studio and I saw that number, I'd be punching the air, I'd be popping champagne.
I will say this much. So first of all, I completely agree with you there, Singer. I think that number is phenomenal, higher than I thought. But I will say this. I've been literally just jonesing to play a new game. I think a lot of people are excited that a new game came out. And listen, whether it was going to be a 90 meta or a 70 meta, right? It was gonna be the talk of the town for the next several weeks, right? Because there's really not. What else is coming out? Is there anything coming out before Indiana Jones? I don't.
I think there is, right?
What comes out between now and Indiana Jones that I'm missing?
The thing is, though, we have had Dragon Age and stuff, and that hasn't hit in the same way. I think it's like 80-something thousand, which
God
I know
bless Dragon Age, by the way. Failguard, hot damn, I love it so much. Look at that hair.
Crap Gamer's going to disagree with you. I have a feeling about that.
I ain't hearing any slander on my girl Balara.
Other than fuck that game, but yeah, other than that,
I just have a feeling based on a few of the other talk.
Nipster in the pot. But listen, I will say this much. I do think that when it comes down to it, I think that people were excited to buy a game. And people went out there and grabbed this game. And listen, they did the sales on it. I like their sales pitch, man. Like what we saw in the trailer, what I saw in the pictures for Stalker 2, I just felt like the minute I launched the game, minute I launched the game, I was like, oh no. I was like, oh, this is not. This is not what I thought it was. I mean, and listen to you guys in the audience or listening later. In the chat, comment below. Like, did you guys feel the same way? Like, because I went into it and I was like, this is going to be some post-apocalyptic, really, really sharp-looking game, right? I mean, it was everything I saw was so sharp, and I even put a little bit of I don't know if you guys saw it earlier here in the footage. After I only played a bit of it just so we could talk a little bit about it, and then I played some more tonight. I put the Metro VR game, Metro Awakening game. And I mean, I'm not even a big Metro fan, but just from the aesthetics and this and that, I mean, the Metro game VR game is that's what I was kind of expecting. The Metro visuals, but even better from Stalker. I was really expecting like something insane. So I was like, I logged on. I was like, yeah, I did. I really thought it was going to be. Well, go back. Honestly, Singer, look at the trailer. Like, you don't have to have the audio on. Just literally while we're on the show right now, just look at the trailer for it, and you'll see that it doesn't look as good as, that looks way better than what you're playing.
I mean, to be honest, though, if I look at Metro Exodus versus Stalker 2, like, 4A Games does a fantastic job with the Metro series. I absolutely adore it. And I've always likened these two, they're brothers, essentially. They kind of do the same thing, the post-apocalyptic. You're doing all this stuff. But I never saw Stalker 2 as, like, it looks better than, like, a Metro Exodus, because I think Metro Exodus looks absolutely gorgeous.
No, he's right, though. The original trailer did look at that level, I think. The original trailer for Stalker 2 looked like some next-gen ass shit. I was like, this is going to be the best. Yeah.
Trailers don't tell the whole story. Look at
this is downgrade Sandro. I reckon if you go back and someone does a comparison, I reckon it's probably going to be like a pretty Ubisoft-esque situation.
I mean, it probably will, but like, remember Killzone Shadowfall? Like, they showed off the trailer, and you played the game, and you were like, "What the fuck?"
Not Shadowfall. Shadowfall's fucking phenomenal, dude. In fact, I think bits of Shadowfall look better than bloody Stalker 2. I swear down. I played Killzone Shadowfall the other day just to remind myself of how much graphics had moved on, and I swear down, like, go back and play that game, and some of that looks better than Stalker 2, in my opinion. Obviously, not the image quality.
Killzone 2.
It was Killzone 2 you're thinking of. Yeah, the CGI.
Yeah, my bad. Yeah, my bad. Killzone 2 trailer. Like, you saw the trailer and you're like, wow. And
that was CGI,
the game and was... Yeah, I know, but like, the thing is, like, I have to be careful these days, especially with trailers, because you could generally tell...
He went all the way back to Killzone 2.
Well, it was just one of those things that in my memory, because like I get Cortex, I get Watch Dogs was another one.
Good example.
Like people will do this in the trailer, so when I see the trailer, I'm like, that's nice. Now let me see the actual game, please.
I feel like we're getting closer and closer to what we see in the trailers being what we get when we get home. That's why I was a little bit. I took an exhale when I saw Stalker 2 when I launched it, but. Crap, you remember when we used to watch a lot of the E3s? I remember especially as E3 was getting, to its last years, people would say, oh my God, that game looks amazing for Xbox or PlayStation. And we were like, we used to say this all the time. We'd be like, you do realize that was on a very powerful PC that we saw that, and sometimes they would say some gameplay is on Xbox. And it was like, yeah, some of it might have been, but the real, like, the outtakes and the cutscenes, that was coming from a very powerful PC. And of course the games didn't look like that. I think we're getting close now as we're getting, years after that. I mentioned that E3 story for people in the audience that are like,
they always put that on the bottom now. They're like mostly capture from this, capture from that, because people are kind of caught on to it. If you go back and look at, like, do you remember Uncharted 4 when they showed that like trailer that one year? That was all like, and then the big thing in engine.
Oh.
In engine.
In engine. Like, well, fuck off. You know what I mean? Like, in engine. Get out of here. Stuff never ends up looking like that. You know what I mean? Like, and to be honest with you,
engine never does.
Yeah, at this point, it doesn't even matter. Just make a good game. Like, fuck.
Yes, that's where I'm at now. Like, make a good game, fun game.
And I get it. Like, everybody likes different types of games, but this year has been one of the worst years for me personally. Like, games that I like. You know what I mean? Because you know me, Mooch. I don't like JRPGs. I don't like I don't like Souls clones or whatever.
Nope, you don't.
I'm not big on
Crap,
indies.
I was actually gonna ask you, tell me your game of the year this year, last year, and
It
the
would just
year
be
before.
Astrobot this year, I guess, because there's nothing really else. So
So
I mean, at
tell
least
me
that was
your
Your
tell me
genre.
your top 5 games. I just want to get an
my
idea
top
of your
5.
taste.
Oh man, let me think.
Yeah.
Shit, I know Mario Brothers 3 is probably in there.
Okay.
I still play that game, KOTOR, the first one. That
Okay,
one's in
nice.
there. I would say
Okay.
probably Gears of War 3.
Mhm.
Let me think. Mass Effect. Mass Effect 2.
one
maybe.
or two.
I would
Yeah.
say 2. Let me see. What other fucking game do I just absolutely love?
Okay.
You're a big Fable fan.
Yeah, you know what? I
Yeah.
love Fable 2. If I had to say something, I would say Fable 2. Like that
Okay.
that game, I put like a ton of time into it. But it's like, if you want to know like one of my favorite years, like what I like, go look at the 2012 or the 2011 game releases, right? And look at all the
Yeah.
variety of games. Like that's like where I was at that point. Like that, to me, that's why I always think that's like the best. If you look at it, so I'm looking at the 2011 releases like L.A. Noire, Deus Ex, Portal 2, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, Saints Row the Third.
I didn't mean to psychoanalyze you, but because this is a very human thing, right? Where sometimes you kind of shift in and out of gaming modes. I don't know if you ever have that where you find for a time games just aren't hitting. You're just not. Maybe you have burnout or something, or you play.
Yeah, there is some of that, but there's also, and I don't get into this stuff on Mooch's channel, but there's stuff like I like Dragon Age and I like Dragon Age 2. This new one, not my thing. I'm not gonna fucking play it. I'm not gonna buy it. I'm not into it, right? And it's like I like fucking what I like the Arkham games. I like what Rocksteady did. But fucking Suicide Squad is complete and utter fucking trash. So it's
it will be the only person that likes that game or platinums it.
Oh my God bless you.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I'm
like,
broken, crap. I'm broken.
It's just like, it's like the stuff that I like turns to shit. It's like that South Park episode. I don't know if you guys know, where Stan's like, everything's shit, right? Everything he watches, everything. It's like, am I old now? Like, no, because there's still some stuff that I enjoy. Like that Space Marine 2 game. I actually kind of like that, right? Like that's a pretty good game.
Great.
Let me ask you this though, and again, it's just if you had no access to social media, right, and you weren't aware of what was being discussed, who was saying what controversy exists, do you still think that you would have a negative opinion of that game?
I would have a negative opinion on Dragon Age if I tried to play it and ran into the shit that I've seen. Right, right away from the character creation screen, I would have been like, I would have turned it off and not went back. But even outside of that, it's like I like Star Wars, love fucking Star Wars, and then they come out with this Star Wars where this girl looks like she has a fucking horse face and she can like hit a stormtrooper in the back of the head and knock him out cold and all this weird shit. It's like,
I'll boop him on the head. What's wrong with a boop on the head?
I mean, come on, it's just like she obviously
there's lights in space.
Like,
there's fires and explosions in the atmosphere.
So she looks like she's dressed like Han Solo. So just make a fucking Han Solo game, right?
Got a cool bomber jacket. Crap.
Like Jesus, like what's funny about that game is they brought in a new fucking person to run that game after it released, and now today they announced they removed all the stealth stuff and they're making all these sweeping changes to it. It's like, hey, you guys, you know what? Maybe before your game completely fucking tanks, pay attention to what people are asking for and saying to begin with, because people were bringing up these things months and months and months before this game released. They were like, how is this game releasing? Look at this, like fucking, and they just pushed back so bad against it. Like, we don't care. We don't think how she looks is blah, 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 blah. Well, fucking people don't want to play a game with a fucking horse face. We play games for escapism, and you know what I mean? We want to see fucking titties bouncing and shit. So it is what it is,
They get the stellar blade effect.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
why was it your game of the year Stellar Blade if you wanted to see that?
I can't get far in that game. I fucking suck at it. So it's like,
you can put it to easy.
I did.
Well, shit. I
love the honesty.
I think the horse face is the least of your problems there, bud.
Jesus, man. I don't know.
I can't figure it out.
I'm looking forward to when Nib. We got to get you a podcast, Nib. That's for damn sure. That's what I learned tonight. Listen, I do want to go over here because I some of you said you had to leave early. I hope you don't. Really want to talk about the Sony, and I'm going to say this wrong. Kofi, please correct me. I'm going to say it wrong, but Kadokawa. Am I saying it right?
Kadokawa.
Kadokawa. And honestly, that is the parent company that owns, and I want to say this right, they own From Software. They own certain titles, such as Mr. Bandit's favorite game of all time, Elden Ring. They do not own, I want to put this out there, they do not own the Dark Souls games. Is that true?
They don't own Demon Souls.
Where does Bandai Namco come into this?
Demon Souls, right?
Sony owns Demon Souls.
Yeah, they own Elden Ring and Dark Souls, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, they do own Dark Souls. I thought for some reason someone said they wouldn't get the rights to the IP because Bandai...
But that was why they switched, right? That was why there was not a Demon Souls 2, because they wanted to go their own direction. They wanted it to be multi-plat.
Okay, got it. So what is the positives here, Kofi? And what do you see as the negatives here? Because there's a lot...
quickly, Mooch, I'm on the trademark website. It does say actually that Bandai Namco owns the Dark Souls IP, not From Software.
That's what I thought.
Right, because they bought Elden Ring from Bandai. Okay, sorry.
That's what I thought. I thought I read that, but I didn't. Listen, I always no problem being wrong. You guys can check it. So I mean, because this is a situation where if this is a situation where they need to be acquired because of certain situations. Now we're seeing some other things coming out where they're kind of. It sounds like they're getting kind of. Bullied by, you might get bought out by someone they don't want to be bought out by. Where are you on this, Kofi? Because your ear's really to the ground when it comes to this stuff.
I really see a lesser of two evils type of situation as a rumor on social media. And to speak a little detail to the negative purchase that we might not like so much, though we probably don't understand much, is a Korean-based company called Kadokawa that is interested in purchasing the company, but I had never heard of them. So I just started looking online. What's so bad about them? And they seem to own other animation studios. Let's be honest. Buying this parent company is not just about the games. It's about a lot of the animation studios they own. There's various animes and mangas that are in rotation right now, very popular. So I just wanted to look at what the parent company has been doing in general. And a lot of employees have grief about working for this company, whether it be pay or labor or work, getting fair work, fair wages. So that's all I can see. Now, that's kind of anecdotal, but if it's about them leaving the ownership of another Japanese company and going to South Korea, that could be a concern because they may go in a direction that is completely different from the moniker that we like to absorb, on the gaming side. If that affects the sequel to Elden Ring or whatever Sekiro might turn into, or if Bloodborne will ever come back at 60 frames per second officially from PlayStation. So I don't want that to happen. If they have to be acquired and if the rumors are true and they asked PlayStation to consider a bid, I'm going to root for them. Now, I know that some of the pushback we're going to get is there's this huge gaming community now that just cares about the Souls franchise and doesn't necessarily care about PlayStation, right? They're like, look, I'm here for Dark Souls 1, 2, 3. I want to play some Armored Core. Give a shout out to Armored Core, okay? Everybody who's been around since 25 years ago.
That's a single clap. I heard it.
I know.
Yeah, it's a single
myself. Oh, man, I really loved Armored Core 5, too, man. Anyway, for all the people who don't care so much about the PlayStation's ownership, they are going to yell very loudly if PlayStation wants to make the next IP exclusive or somehow restrict people's Steam accounts, which I just don't even want to talk about that. Or do something like prioritize only the biggest games and not look at some of the smaller titles that are under Kadokawa. I'm thinking of like Acquire, which is another small Japanese studio that makes games. They're mostly known for Way of the Samurai. Spike Chunsoft is owned by Kadokawa. They're really known for a game I just imported. It's called Rain Code. It's like about a detective who is out to... It's almost like a murder mystery visual novel, but it's got a lot of puzzles in it. They're known for Danganronpa. They're known for... there's another game that... Virtues... what is it called? There's a game called Nine Doors. I'm forgetting the name of it. I'm gonna kill myself. for not knowing the name of it. But my favorite in that series is called Virtue's Last Reward. I'm forgetting the main title, but little titles like this, if they're forgotten in the acquisition, that would be a huge disappointment. We want to see some of these smaller titles continue to flourish. And the reason I even bring that up is an old interview from Shuhei Yoshida that mentioned that that when he was in leadership at PlayStation, he's always looking for Japanese developers to take leadership of big IPs. And when I'm forgetting his name, but the creator behind Gravity Rush left and made Slitterhead, which just came out recently.
Yep.
One of the reasons we understand that they parted ways is he didn't really want to make the biggest, most expensive, most ambitious game in the world. He just wanted to make a horror game that he loved.
Yeah.
And so when I look at Japanese Japanese leadership that wants to make AAA games under Sony, we have like Kazunori Yamauchi, Gran Turismo, and we had Fumito Ueda for a while. Fumito Ueda made Shadow of the Colossus, but it seems very hard to build up a. It seems hard, like Shuhei Yoshida expressed difficulty in finding somebody who wants to make those big games. And so I guess the reason I'm bringing this up is my concern would be that he doesn't want to focus on smaller teams too. Some of these smaller titles, like Gravity Rush, could have stayed in the AA space. I think it would have been fine. I understand sales was probably the reason why we don't have a Gravity Rush 3, but I don't necessarily need Gravity Rush to be the biggest, most expensive, most ambitious thing ever. I still want Studio Japan to exist and make big things.
Right.
But Astrobot, right? I don't think Astrobot is the biggest budget game ever. But look at what they were able to do, right? They were able to touch on a piece of nostalgia and show some very well executed gameplay.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of rooting for that. So again, I think the lesser of two evils is for Sony to buy this, because I don't know who can take advantage of some of these IPs that Kadokawa owns. Like, for example, like there's some animes that have games that come out now, like I'm forgetting, like ReZero. I don't really watch a lot of the animes that Kadokawa owns, but if Sony was smart, they would kind of leverage some of these IPs that they own and try to create new franchises to excite the East. When you look at software sales, PlayStation compared to Switch, basically their biggest competitor, they're getting crushed, right? They're getting crushed because of their, I don't know, I feel like there's a disconnect for some of the IPs that they are not supporting anymore. For example, Freedom Wars just got announced, right? That was a PlayStation owned title for PlayStation Portable, and a lot of gamers in Japan loved it. And when it was announced as a remaster, people are freaking out on social media. They're like, "Oh, Freedom Wars!" But Sony doesn't do that anymore. I think they sold the rights to Bandai, or they just like, look, we're going to toss that across the fence. But now owning Kadokawa gives them more and more opportunities to take advantage of these Eastern-owned IPs, and make something really special that isn't super ambitious. At the same time, yes, sequel to Bloodborne, Sekiro, Demon Souls, whatever ends up coming out from Software Next, I'm here for.
Just said all my safe words.
But what about like the things that concern me? I worry about the developers. I've said this. I haven't said it enough recently. The developers are the creators, right? When you see how specific Miyazaki is, right? He has rules in place. There's things that he will only create under certain, and that's why a lot of people may not like that. As I've grown older, I've kind of really enjoyed seeing how Kojima has become specific. You may not like Kojima's games, that's fine. But Kojima and the way that he mixes art, music, movies, and games. And Miyazaki has his feelings on gaming that go into art, lore, story, depth. I don't pick up the movie part of it like Kojima. But like my concern, Kofi, is if this happens, will the team that makes these great games, will they stay on? Will they work with Sony? Someone told me yes, they probably will, because they've worked with Sony before. So is that something where if they were to be acquired, at least they're more comfortable, or no, this would be something that would be a deal breaker and we may see quite a pivot in what we've come to expect from Software and some of the other games that have come under Kadokawa?
Oh, that is such a good question. I'm 50-50 on that. I think some of the smaller developers, if they are challenged with being forced to make bigger games, they may not want to, right?
Right.
The same situation with the Gravity Rush 2 developers. I don't know if Sony has their ears to the concrete enough to say, we need both tiers, and they're both so important. So I obviously think like the biggest IPs, they're going to have a lot of, what do you call that? Like brain power going into making sure that they are less bugs, great overall reviews and things like that. But I just pray that they keep a lot of these smaller studios, even boost them up. Like, for example, one of the studios I just mentioned, Acquire, they have some, classic IPs, but, let's be honest, they're not like making like super well polished like niche games very regularly right now. They could use some help at the tier they're at. And maybe Sony looks at them and says their return on investment is not big enough. That's a shame. But that's maybe what they do. It's a great question. I can't answer it. That's a tough one.
All right, can I say the thing?
Go ahead.
Is gonna get me booed?
No, go ahead, Mr. Bab, because I know that you've been.
All right.
I know how you kind of feel, but I can't wait to hear it.
Let me tell you, I'm ready for the booze. I'm just ready.
Ready for
I
the
get it. I'm garbage. I understand. All right. Here's what I think. First off, I don't understand anime. Is that how you pronounce it? Or manga?
Anime.
They're not. I was fucking with you, that's saying. But
I was gonna say, my guy.
but from what I understand, from what folks have been kind of fear mongering on my end, is just like, hey, Sony is already a really big, and this is before the update. I just want to give you guys my thoughts before this update of like this could have been or possibly a hostile takeover from a South Korean studio or whatever. That Sony's already very influential in that space. They already have two of the largest streaming services for anime. They are what's that?
Only one.
Crunchyroll
Sony
and Funimation, right?
No, Crunchyroll's no more. Sony had the brilliant idea of merging the two, which was my. I'll let you go off because I have
please.
a point.
No, I'm learning. Yeah.
Okay, well, so Sony decided to merge the two, okay? And Funimation had a deal, right? Which was if you bought a physical DVD or Blu-ray of an anime, you could redeem and you could get a digital version, right? So you could stream and keep it forever. If something happens to your disc,
sure.
you right? Okay, so millions of people did that. Now, Sony decided to merge the two. Now, what they didn't tell you was, until people found out afterwards, because Sony wants Crunchyroll to be the number one place for anime fans, quote unquote, for 30, 50, 100 years, lovable characters and IP, and they want all anime to be in one place on Crunchyroll. Now, the problem is, all those digital copies that everyone had that, on the premise of they'd last forever. When they merged Funimation and Crunchyroll, you lost all those digital copies on Funimation. Your entire digital library that you had copies of disappeared because Crunchyroll doesn't support them. Right? So if you lost your Blu-ray or your DVD, your physical version, you now have to get that shit.
So I got the gist of it. So this makes me hate this even more. So they're large enough to close down one of the top biggest streaming services for anime to roll it into one giant service, right? And now they're asking, hey, we want to be even bigger with this purchase because this is another distributor. This is another company that owns a massive amount of IP that we can control and put into our services. But more than just that, and Kofi, maybe you could correct me if I'm wrong on this, but there's been a really big surge of folks that are really digging anime and manga here in the Western sphere, right?
Absolutely.
There is a growing audience. I'm seeing it on Hulu. I'm seeing it on like Disney, like all that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, didn't we win this war? But nonetheless, I take a look at it and I'm like, Sony gets to do what now they do on a broader scale, which is rent out their IP to other streaming services, and who knows, maybe one day they get to tag along in a bundle pack somewhere, but they get to rent out more of these, these shows over to whatever streaming services to get more money out of them. So like, to me, it's like, okay, that's already maybe a little bit too much influence for me that I'm comfortable with. But again, I'm not totally knowledgeable on that. My problem with From Software being acquired from PlayStation, which when I take a look at this acquisition, it's very much, hey, we're in this for anime. The From Software stuff, that's icing on the cake. And let's be honest, PlayStation is not interested in the smaller games. So like, what is it? The Octopath devs. I get worried for those smaller studios that are not From Software. Because it seems like PlayStation does not have interest in those games. That being said, or those type of games anymore. They closed down Japan's studio, right?
Yeah, but people say that, and don't get me wrong, Mr. Babbitt, I'm not saying everything you just said was false. I don't think that it's wrong at all. I'm just saying, people go, they closed down Japan studios. You have to look, were the games selling? Were the games making money?
And that's the thing, right? So it's like, did Octopath Traveler 2 hit? You know what I'm saying?
Right,
so
did it hit? Right.
That's where my mind's at. So when I take a look at From Software, I love From Software so much. They are my favorite developer. I buy every single one of their games. Even the games that don't hit for me, I can see their brilliance, like Armored Core. That said, Miyazaki is king. And the last thing I want, as much as I want a Bloodborne 2, as much as I love a Bloodborne, I'd do anything for a remake or remaster. Okay? 60 FPS, I don't care. Is that I don't want them to be told that they have to make Bloodborne 2. Right? I want From Software, and this is my the line in which I'm going to be okay with this. I'm apprehensive, but once you announce it, I will be okay. Is as long as you let me know that From Software retains their anonymity. They get to continue to do weird stuff that Miyazaki wants, and his team, more importantly, wants. I become a happy camper. So if they want to go out there and make Bloodborne 2, God bless you, Miyazaki-san. If they want to make that patch, ooey, let's go. But I don't want them to be told what their next game should be. Because we've seen that right now, going on in the PlayStation studios where, studios would get more funding if you're like, hey, I'm going to make this, there's going to be a live service element to X, Y, and Z, right? Talking about Ben, talking about Gorilla. So, that's how they found Atlas, right? So like, I don't want Miyazaki's next idea to be passed on for another sequel, or for something else. I don't want that.
Mr. Babbitt, can I make you feel better just a little bit? There's no games out there that I think have been with a big budget so out just wild, right? Yeah. And we haven't even seen it yet than Kojima. And I understand that Sony PlayStation, literally, even with now that them giving the Death Stranding back to Kojima Productions, but at the same time, they didn't try to keep Kojima down. Kojima left Konami because they weren't letting him be creative, expand, and probably other reasons that I don't know. Maybe Kofi knows. But my point is if they're going to let someone like Kojima spread his wings and be creative, if Miyazaki says this is what I want to do, and he has brought only success. I think your concern, as valid as it is to state it, it's valid to state it. I don't think, and I mean this in a gaming sense. I know you're not losing sleep, but I wouldn't lose sleep over it in a gaming sense because that would probably be one of the safest bets. And I'm right there with you, by the way, Mr. Babbitt. I want Miyazaki to have utter freedom, period. Or we wouldn't have had Elden Ring, right?
No.
So
let them be weird. And then my second point here is treat them how you would Bungie. Let them have their games to be put on everything on day one. Have it on Xbox, have it on PC. I don't really give two shits. The players that experience those games should continue to get to experience those games on day one. Does that mean, well, Joe, what about Bloodborne? Put it everywhere. I don't care. Because me as a consumer, when I take a look at this news, I'm like, what am I really gaining out of this? Right? Like, what is me, the consumer, gaining out of this acquisition? Absolutely nothing. Other than me seeing a splash screen of the PlayStation characters in the beginning, I get nothing out of this. So it's like, to me, it's I'm between this is a nothing burger and
okay.
I'm a little alarmed, but my blood pressure comes down a bit when I say this. The update that, hey, there was a quote unquote hostile takeover of Kadokawa, and that was the thing that they went to Sony to say, hey, are you interested in us? Because, there is a foreign entity that's looking to buy. Then that makes me a little less concerned because they're actually going to their partner and they trust them so much that they trust them to be the steward of their product. So that's where my nerves are now settled.
You made a good,
a lot of people.
Yeah, you make a great point, Mr. Babbitt. And I think that at the end of the day, you as the gamer nothing changes for you. Well, especially you in this case. But I guess I would I'll pivot the question though. Sure. And you can answer it, Nib. I want to see your thoughts on this too. Do you think that if they were to get it, is now that we see the way acquisitions are going, will this just be a nothing burger and it'll be on all platforms? The reason you're seeing concern is you're seeing that maybe this may only be a PlayStation and PC, type of if Sony was to get it, that they would exclude Xbox. That's where the conversation kind of comes in.
And not even just Xbox, it's also PC and how they handle like PC. Like, look at the day one of Elden Ring, right? Breaking records. Same with Shadow of the Earth Tree.
Right.
Like, I want my PC brothers and my Xbox brothers to experience this game day and day. That's really where it is. And then also, Nib, you put a little fear in me. I'm an anxious boy by nature. Of like the PlayStation login. God forbid PC players are inconvenienced just even slightly. They're like,
I don't even. I know.
Yeah.
Come on, guys! Jesus Christ! It's just a login. It's not going to kill you.
You know what I find? I find that the ones who talk about the snowflake generation are the most snowflakey
the most sensitive fucking people I've ever met in my life.
But
I kidding me? I can't talk to my uncle anymore. He's just crying all the time. I'm like, dude, you're guy one, relax. Why are you still talking to me?
On the Kadokawa stuff, I think like from a business perspective, it makes sense for Sony, because on the front of mobile gaming, huge. Like some of Kadokawa's most revenue comes from mobile games.
Those gotchas,
gotchas. I'm just looking at a list now. So their highest earner is.
That happens. He'll be back.
Okay, all right.
Nib, come back.
Sorry,
there you go, Nib.
Yeah, I was going to say, their highest gaming revenue earner is actually a mobile title called Oshinoko or something. Like I've never even heard of it before. And then there's loads. There's a whole list of them. Eminence of the something, and I think there's like 12 mobile games that are like huge earners. And PlayStation has had a taste of that because actually, not PlayStation, Sony, because one of Sony's biggest gaming earners is not actually part of PlayStation. It's part of Sony Music and Aniplex with Fate Grand Order. Believe it or not, I don't know if it still is, but it was actually the 8th highest earning mobile game in all history at one point. People say Minecraft is big. This earned 4.5 times more mobile revenue than Minecraft.
Oh wow!
So it was like massive.
So they get a lot of stuff out of this, and the mobile
they get a lot
is
of
the one thing that
mobile.
Then you've got the right now.
Exactly. Then you've got publication, manga, video. So their other two biggest revenue streams are from publications, which is the manga side of things, and then video, anime, etc. So basically, for PlayStation, for mobile, for manga, for anime, streaming, etc., like across the whole board, it's like perfect for their portfolio. So I don't think they're necessarily doing it just like for Elden Ring or something. I think they're looking at it like in every category this would suit us. And I think probably there's a bit of, maybe Kadokawa's like put the publicly information out so they can maybe fish for more offers, raise the price up, their share price already. I can't buy shares in Japan because I haven't filled out the tax forms, but it would have been nice to make 20-30% in a day. But yeah, so that was cool. But I think they're just trying to drive up their share price and bring in more interest, which is fine. Like it's a good business savvy thing to do. But they have there has been a little bit of struggles with the Kadokawa, like within the last year or so, in terms of share price. Obviously, with the Nikkei is tumbling as well, and just Japan is seeing some turbulence. So it makes sense that they might look for sort of like a bailout on a acquisition.
Well, let's ask the question. Kofi, go ahead, Kofi.
Well, I was just going to add a little bit to them not doing so well, and a little bit of salt I want to put on a soapbox. I usually pre-order the latest Trails game through their website, and last June they got hacked, and it went down, and I lost a chance at my coveted collector's edition. But they also posted the forecasted loss of revenue based on them being, I think they were down for like a month, for that. So there's a lot of pain that they went through.
Yeah. Fair.
My question
is,
then
you know what? Nib he just quelled all my qualms, and I'm fine now. I'm okay. I think you're gonna be okay.
To the Xbox side of the thing, should they worry? Yeah, I do think a Bloodborne 2 probably would be exclusive.
Yeah,
but I will say the dynamics are shifting, because the thing is, in future, Xbox is poised to not be really a competitor for PlayStation, if we're truly being honest. Because if they do bring all their games to PlayStation, if you're a PlayStation consumer, you don't really have much reason to go over to Xbox anymore. It's like, okay, I'll get this box, I'll save the money on that box, and I get all the games from there on here, I get all the games from here on here, and I get all the multi-platform games. So
I'll say
future,
this. And then I gotta go, because I hate to break it to you, Nib, but my phone's my Xbox now. You know what I'm saying? So it's
Cooler is my Xbox, all right?
Exactly.
Everything.
But as I joke, and then again I gotta go. I'm a little late to something, but that's like when people the whole console wars. It's over, guys. I said on the show, it's like console war's over. We won, yay! Wave your little flag. We got nothing out of it, but wave the flag. It's over. Like this is Xbox's strategy. They're seeing games in the next 5 to 10 years going, we don't think it's the console as much as it is this ecosystem that we can make. And if we can make this idea of an ecosystem, of a marketplace, then maybe there's something here of this interconnected, environment that we can actually maybe thrive in. Like when people go, oh, is it to get out of third place? I'm like, man, places... It's like it's a race. They're just here to make money. How can they make the most money? And they're saying the way that we make the most money is by stop competing with PlayStation and create this platform.
Now, here's the thing, Mr. Babbitt, you're spot on with that. The only thing that has come as a result, when you've asked the question twice tonight, and great points. You said, "What do I get out of this? What do I get as the gamer out of this?" The problem that I've seen by Microsoft's the pivot that they've done since, let's just say, roughly around 2016 to today, it's not that they're on Fire Stick, and it's not that they're going publisher. To me. For me as the gamer and someone that bought Xbox, usually it used to be first, don't anymore, is the quality of the games. Everything is just, it's just, look at I said this back in 2019 and people didn't like when I said it. The console, it's just, you can say what you want. You don't like the way the PlayStation 5 looks, fine. But it's if you're going to go out there for next generation, the aesthetics, it was just a cylinder block. It was the same controller. It was the same UI. They had no new game when it came out. I mean, I bought Valhalla, Assassin's Creed Valhalla as the game I brought my Series X home with. My point is that's my concern for Xbox. It's not about waving the flag or who won, because you said at the end of the day, nobody's getting a 5% cut out of this. It's just that I've noticed this degradation of just like games and the hardware. Now we don't know what's going on with the hardware, right? Maybe it'll be a hybrid Steam machine. Maybe it'll be a handheld. Like none of that's truly exciting when there's already handhelds on the market. Like the handheld I'm looking forward to buying next is probably the Steam Deck 2.
I looked at the white one. I was like, can it be a little foolish? I was like,
you know what I mean?
No, you're right. I think my biggest problem with Microsoft is someone who sold their Series X. I don't have a need for it. Got the PC here, and that's no shade. That's literally what they want. Stop yelling at me. My biggest problem is they say one thing and then they do the next, and then they say one thing, and it's like they never have their messaging truly right. Right. No. So you saw in February, it's like, hey guys, only 4 games, just 4 games right now, nothing to be.
Oh no, that was them easing it in. They just didn't want to. They didn't want to.
Yeah, no, yeah. So
I did want to clarify one.
Go for it.
one thing of what I said before. Even though obviously the dynamics are shifting, it's not much competition, and therefore they could release the games on Xbox. I did want to clarify one point though, because the problem is games aren't really selling as much on Xbox, right? Certain studios are choosing not to release on Xbox, not because of marketing deals like Octopath Traveler 2 and whatever else, but because just they don't think the margins are there, especially if the genre of game is bigger in, say, Japan, right? So I do think there is a possibility, like on some of the side projects. I don't know how much Armored Core sold on Xbox. I'm going to assume it didn't sell that much based on the splits we have from the retail margins, from the retail GSD data, etc. I'm going to assume that it's not massive. It kind of seems to be a thing where, like, if it's a smaller project, and obviously not like Elden Ring sold really well on Xbox, and the bigger titles will have enough of a margin. But if it's like an Octopath or a side project or an Armored Core 7 or whatever, there is a possibility they might just say, okay, we don't see the return on investment on doing the Xbox version. We may just go PC and PlayStation, and it also bolsters the platform. There is a chance that could still happen. I'm not saying it will. They might just go multi-platform because, as I said, Xbox isn't much competition, but it may not necessarily be the case. So again, we just have to see how things unfold and how the sales splits continue, because PlayStation won't necessarily be guaranteed like a Game Pass deal.
Yeah.
So if you're not getting the Game Pass money, then how much financial sense is there to do the porting and all the development and everything else? Does it still make sense at a point? And I think, other people have discussed it, like Chris String from GameIndustry.biz. More and more publishers are now asking this question: is it worth it for us to continue porting to? And while we haven't seen much of a shift yet, is something that could happen in the future, especially when they're marketing and saying you don't really need an Xbox anymore. Like, I could imagine the console numbers will only keep dwindling.
Yeah.
Right.
That said, y'all,
I'll let you go,
gotta
Mr. Badbit. I will let you go, Mr. Badbit. Let everybody know where they can find you. I'm glad you could be here. I somehow wish I lived closer to you so I could confiscate you for 2 full hours, Mr. Badbit. It is so hard to keep you for 2 hours.
Dude, I was so pissed today because literally 2 hours before, before I could message you, I got a message from my manager going, "Hey, you know that there's a meeting at 6:30." I go, "What?" I never got the email. Oh my! I'm like, my day off, I can't even enjoy it.
No, it's not fair. That is not fair.
It's not fair.
It's not.
Listen, I would say listen to the latest episode of the Trophy. But you know what?
Yeah.
That's a lie. Listen to the week before because now there's a lot of outdated messaging there. You're gonna get yelled. I'm just gonna get yelled at. Instead, follow me at Blue Sky. It's nice over there, man. I don't get that many. Listen, I get bots following me, but they're not porn bots. It's like they're not telling me they love me and I get catfished. It's great over there. It's nice. They are, and they actually talk about games. It's great. I don't see a dumb trending section. It's completely tailored to what you're actually interested in. I was like, ooh, sign me up. So find me over there at Mr. Badbit, as I kind of just I'm over it. I'm over the X. I think things start going downhill when he's like, "I'm gonna make an X and not a bird." It's like, it's the birds.
The bird should come back.
Why you bought it?
The bird should come back. I just said that last night. I said I would love a new name because X doesn't just doesn't finish the sentence. It's see on X and you're like, what? Yeah. Yeah,
I know. Blue Sky, you could ski everywhere. You know what you call the timeline? The skyline. Shit.
Oh, look at
That's
that.
clever.
How about
so you're
that?
skeeting all over the skyline. It's great, guys. It's great over there. I'm at Mr. Badbit. All that good stuff.
I love it. Wow. Mr. Badbit, not promoting consoles. He will not promote consoles. He's promoting Blue Sky. I think he's getting 5%.
I can tell your politics would perfectly align with crap gamers.
Oh, yes.
So.
Yes.
We'd be agreeing.
Nib, you are cut off. Mr. Badbit, great to have you. Great to have the great Mr. Badbit here with us. Mr. Badbit, we can't wait till you return. Hopefully I can bother you again.
Can I just say one thing?
Please.
I was on Threads, and that was like the liberal version of X, and I wanted to really just run out a window. It's like, dude, we get it. You're sad. I am too. Like, give it a break, though.
Right.
Come on, Anderson.
There's been so many new Twitter or X now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what I'm doing? I'm just waiting for it. When one really catches fire, I just want to go where everyone is.
It's massive.
Yeah, it's massive, dude. I mean, listen, it's not Twitter yet, right? Like, but like 20 million, it's like
20 million.
Usually I wouldn't
be
this like. Listen, they're not paying me. I wouldn't be this adamant if I'm not having a good time. Because the best thing is like my whole thing is like I don't want to see politics anymore. I don't want to like. Don't sell me weird Bibles. You know what I mean? Like the ninja T-shirts. You don't get any of that there. You literally go like, I want to talk about games, and then there's just a feed about games. It's beautiful.
Mr. Badbit, you know why I don't post much on there at the moment?
What's that?
I don't know if you know, but I have a reputation of writing theses, and they have a character limit.
Oh,
so I like,
what's the character? What's the character limit over there?
Sure. I think
low,
it's like 300.
very low.
Yeah, low for no, Nib. You write a goddamn thesis.
Nib has his tweets come with a homework assignment. It's unbelievable. Yeah.
I'm like, dude, I'm on the toilet. I only got 5 minutes.
I only got 5 minutes.
you have a 5-minute shit. Damn, that's quite short for a guy.
Oh, listen, I got IBS. Humble brag. We gotta concentrate when we're in there. We enter it. It's a war zone. I got generals at the side of me. All right, everybody.
We'll see you, Mr. Badbit. Thank you so much. We don't have to get. Yeah, I want to ask you that, singer. The singer I was coming to you next. I wanted to ask you: do you think that if Sony ends up buying and acquiring Kadokawa, do you think we have a situation where if there's an Elden Ring 2, it'll definitely be it'll be on PC day one, but if it has a sign-in with Elden Ring's popularity, different than what Sony's tried to pull recently with newer games, do you think the PC community would be okay with that?
I don't know. I doubt it. I mean, it's because making them. The thing is, it's weird. Like I think Sony have. I mean, it's. I don't think they would push it onto From Software because I think they would give From Software like their own independence. I think of From Software, they'll give them their own independence like they did for Bungie, right? Because the Destiny 2, you never had to sign into PSN or anything. It never came up. Like you just log on to Destiny 2 and off you play. And I assume that'll be when you get a FromSoft game, it's gonna be. You just download it on Steam, click play, and off you go. I don't think they'd put a sign-in requirement. They would, just because I think they would treat it more like that, because you don't want to sour the user base anyway.
Did they answer the question though? Do we know what's going on the PC version of what will be Marathon? Will that require a sign-in, or we don't know yet?
No, we don't know. I don't even know if Marathon will be a good game yet. I mean,
so that's
we're going to have to wait and see on that because their current online service games are hit and miss at the moment. So we'll have to take a rain check and see how Marathon turns out because Bungie's currently in its struggle phase. It's probably getting chopped up, absorbed into PlayStation at some point. So
I think you'll still see Bungie exist. I think Bungie will exist. I think you'll see. I do think in the future we'll see a Destiny 3. I think there's still more Destiny 2 content yet to come from what I hear from the Destiny community. I don't know if it'll be as big as the expansions we've seen. I don't think that'll happen. I think Destiny 3 will be a thing eventually. I really do. It is noteworthy to say Helldivers 2 has won multiple awards at the Golden Joystick Awards, and I believe they won Best Multiplayer. So I mean, Sony's had a rough year, and I think in a year where they had Concord, they also won Best Multiplayer Game of the Year. So it's kind of it's a bittersweet year for Sony in that sense. We'll see what's going on there. Go ahead, Tetzinger.
The thing is, it's like with Helldivers 2, you saw what happened, right? They didn't have a sign-in initially, and then they did the sign-in, and then the pushback came, and then they immediately was like, yo, fuck this, we're out, right? We don't want to sour the good shit they garnered, because that was a massive success. Helldivers 2, huge success, right?
Right.
Concord came out, we don't want to talk about that, we've been talked about that, it is whatever.
That's right.
So there's your hit, there's your miss.
That's right.
So we have to see. I just don't think they'd force a sign-in from FromSoft because it's just too big. Like if they release an Elden Ring 2, you're gonna want it to do more than what the first one did, right?
Yep.
So you want to remove all the limitations as possible to do that because Steam is more than the 69 countries where PSN allows. Steam is way more than that. So all that comes together. So you need to cater to everything Steam encompasses. That's why I just don't see From software requiring a PlayStation sign-in. Now, it makes sense for their own first-party games because that's your games, right? Sure, this is my game. You sign into my system. I understand that. Okay, fine. But something like this, I don't think. And with the Kadokawa purchase, my worry isn't about FromSoft because I know I'm getting their games day one on PC. I ain't got to worry about that. Like skipping Xbox, not my problem. But then I just worry about them consolidating the anime industry because consolidation is bad. And I don't want them to get to the point where they're like, gobble this up, gobble that up, gobble this up. And if you own Crunchyroll, the price will just increase and increase and increase as they absorb them in. And I know their idea is to make Crunchyroll the number one place for anime, but I just don't like the idea, and I don't think Sony a good stewardship of anime. So that's where my concern comes from. The FromSoft doesn't affect me at all because I know I'm getting their games day one anyway. So.
Well, interesting comment here by Magnetar Lord Azrael. She says, I would just want to see FromSoft using a PlayStation Studio engine. I mean, there's something to that. A lot of people have always said, now, Elden Ring looked good, but could some of those games look better? That's definitely a valid question. Shout out to Eric Eric R68. He says, Mooch, they revolted on Helldivers 2, and now single-player games require it. So he's saying, well, they kind of said, well, now everything's going to have it. So I mean, does Helldivers 2 currently require a PSN on Steam?
I don't think they've gone back and added it.
I think they added it again. Yes, I think they did. I thought they did. I'm not sure. I don't know. I thought they did.
Yeah, I'm not sure about.
I'm pretty sure they took it because they had the pushback and then they took it off. I do believe.
I'm not sure. I know they took it off, but then I thought they put it back.
Maybe. I know they were trying to keep as many players on there as possible.
If anybody knows in the chat, let me know. By the way, that would be great. Go ahead,
quick,
Kofi.
I just wanted to touch on the comment. I like the comment that you mentioned. Somebody just said a different engine for FromSoft.
Yeah.
When I think about an old engine, I do think about From Software using do they currently use, but it makes me think, I know this sounds a little bit out of left field, but it makes me think of Capcom and how they had Monster Hunter using the same engine for like 15 years. And then finally when World came out, it felt like, I mean, I'll never forget when I first saw that game. I called my friend. I said, I don't care if you're at work right now. I need you to go look at this E3 press conference right now because it looks so good. I think Elden Ring could have that level type of reaction if they work on a different engine. If it was something Decima related or something PlayStation owns, I think that would be amazing.
Yeah.
But, it does take some heavy lifting, and we would see the developer kind of go to work for a while, right? It might be like 4 years that they need to build up something that's not just ambitious with a new engine, but has enough content to make people go, oh, wow, this is going to be great.
I agree. Shout out to, and just so you know, you're looking, Death Singer, it looks like Eric has said, Mooch, Helldivers 2 is still optional. So it's optional. So I think the Death Singer was correct. I'm a little behind on some of the super chats here. Archmore Angel says, Stalker 2 is good enough for Game Pass with a couple of laughing emojis. Shout out to Archmore Angel. Brian Ludwig, he says, a boobs bouncing Skyrim, baby. That's got nothing to do with Skyrim. That's Death Singer's mods community that you can thank for that. Vichai Chim, I think I'm saying it right. He says, if the deal goes through Kadokawa, most likely to be under Sony Music anyway, rather than PlayStation. So most likely nothing's going to change anyway. So interesting that he says under Sony Music. I could see it being more like Death Singer, where it would be under Sony, the parent company, and they may have their own freedoms, right, on how they want to move, like kind of how Bungie did. Under Sony Music, Kofi, anything on that? Would they fall under Sony Music?
Yeah, I
saw one article, but
mentioned as well. I think that if that happens, Sony at some point would love to use that IP for gaming entertainment or for anime outside of music. But it may be that we wouldn't notice anything for the rest of this generation, or let's say the acquisition does happen next year.
Yeah.
I think the rest of this generation would be unnoticeable. But then at some point, Sony would say, "Hey, we do own them. It's just under a different division, and we now want to put in the work to get whatever licensing We need to get this distributed worldwide.
Okay.
You know, this anime, this game, things like that.
Mr. Grimm says, I'm still not sure about this acquisition, but anyone who was cheering for the ABK acquisition, but all of a sudden is against this acquisition, needs to sit down and be quiet. Your hypocrisy is stinking up the place. Mr. Grimm had enough of that. I do see a lot of people being like, you know, I'm concerned. I mean, look, Elden Ring, massive success. The Dark Souls probably series had picked up quite a bit of familiarity after people played Elden Ring. But like, you know, you talk about ABK was 69 billion. Call of Duty alone. I mean, Call of Duty is a household name. You guys can sit here and say in the gaming community that Elden Ring is a household name, and that's fine. I'm not saying it. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but not like Call of Duty. And you're talking about. I've seen upwards of talk of $4 billion buyout. I tried to get the great David Faulkner on the show, as I like to call him, the gaming community's accountant. He was unable to make it today. I wanted to see financials.
$4 billion for Kadokawa.
That's what I saw. Is that incorrect?
I don't know, dude.
I saw their. What do you think, Neb?
So I think their market cap obviously has gone up because of the share price. So I don't know today.
Well, this was prior. This was prior to that spike.
Yeah. So I think the market cap previously was 2 billion.
Okay.
2 point something billion.
Oh, maybe then it was after. So, my apologies. Then maybe it was after because I just saw it yesterday. And if there was a spike, maybe that did affect it. I thought it was prior to.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. But I mean, like for example, ABK had a 45% premium on the share price, and that's like kind of like a going rate, like between like 25 and 50% usually. So given their performance has not been super strong in recent trends, I would imagine it wouldn't be on the higher end of that. It would be on the lower end of the premium. So take their market cap and add, you know, whatever 30-40% on top, and it's probably your ballpark. It could be even less than that, like I said, because of their performance recently. But I don't know, 4 billion seems a bit high unless their share price has gone up that much. Like I said, I haven't checked today. But
well,
yeah,
I mean,
4 billion.
4 billion, and a lot of people were questioning how could Sony make that purchase. I mean, I wanted to have David on. I didn't really to get into that. I mean. Someone asked a long time ago when we were knee deep in the whole ABK talk and this and that. They said, "Well, if Sony was to acquire somebody, who would they acquire?" And I said, I said it would be, and I didn't say Kadokawa. I said, I said From Software, or however you would obtain them, which this would be the way. I think this is probably one of the only ones. If you're not going to just do smaller studios and invest, go ahead.
No, I was going to say on that point, like they already have the money for that. So they set aside 18.1 billion 2 years ago for acquisitions. Yep. Of that 18.1 billion, 5 point something remains literally in holding. So they have the cash available to buy it like tomorrow if they wanted. So they easily can afford it, and they have money left over to buy more.
Well, does this also play a role? And maybe this is more of what you were alluding to. Eric R68 says, Mooch, he says Sony owns 14% currently, so it'll be even cheaper than buying 100% of it.
They don't own 14% of Kadokawa. They own 14%.
Right, they own 14% of From. So yeah,
right.
Yeah. Very different.
Very different. Good point. Go ahead.
The whole From Software thing being bought, it's like I thought they'd probably buy that. I just had to everyone in the chats chatting about me and the APK deal, and it's like, it was obvious the purchase was just for money, and all the games would remain multi-plat anyway, and I expect the same thing from Software. The only game I wouldn't expect to be multi-plat is probably Bloodborne, even if they decided to do it, which From Software really don't care about Bloodborne right now. Like, they've no intention of going back to it. So, I mean, I think they're not going to do that. They'll focus probably on the next Elden Ring, because after the success of Elden Ring, you'd be stupid not to capitalize on it. Or you might get a Sekiro 2. Who knows?
Right.
So, I mean, they could go that way, and I'm not worried about it. So it's like the same way I worried about ABK, I'm not worried about this deal. My concern doesn't come from the gaming side. My concern comes from the anime side as a whole. That's where my concern comes from. Like, the FromSoft thing doesn't affect me. So
yeah, well, I mean, I think Well, you say the enemy side. A lot of people that were concerned about like Call of Duty. Imagine if Call of Duty did just remain on Xbox, right?
It would never do that, though.
Well, that's a very easy thing to say on Monday morning quarterback.
It's an interesting thing because if you look at the GSD splits, Xbox sales of Call of Duty, the new one, are down 70% on Modern Warfare 2. So it's like if they didn't have the PlayStation bump, I think PlayStation is up quite, double digits. It would have been a bad thing for Microsoft because, they would have lost so heavily. I think PC is down as well. Like if you look at the splits, like PC and Xbox combined, like it's only 20 something like percent they account for now. And basically the rest is on PlayStation. So, keeping it on PlayStation, obviously, the conversation could have been different if the Xbox console itself was in a stronger position. Part of that is down to just the Xbox console side dwindling. But yeah, it's really interesting because I guess PlayStation really has offset whatever sales loss they have on the Xbox side because people are just playing on Game Pass. But what I'd be really interested to hear, and I can't wait to see the revenue figures for ABK, because can they translate player numbers into more revenue by those people spending more money on DLC, MTX, etc., or will the loss of sales, direct sales, actually impact revenue? So that will be really fascinating to see because we've never really had a clear insight onto that kind of thing. This will be the first time we do.
Let me do this. I want to switch over to an interesting subject. This years ago would have, maybe it's because the games that are in there aren't causing a fire this year, but I want to talk about the Game Awards for a bit. Usually when we get into or get close to, I believe it's December 12th, which is funny because I have a function on December 12th to go to, which is a Thursday night. So we'll probably do CrossFire just as a heads up to everybody that's still here to know. I'll announce it earlier in that week, but we'll do an earlier. I'll probably either do a Wednesday or a Friday CrossFire that week. Of course, I'm not going to do it on the night. I'll be out that night, and then I'm going to come home and watch the Game Awards, delayed, of course. But I'll check it out, and I wouldn't run it against it because everyone will be watching that. But I do think that when we have shout out to RGG, Ranting Greek Gamer. Thank you for being here, buddy. He says, I got to get some sleep. It's 4 a.m. here. Appreciate that, RGG. Great to have you here. But when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, guys, Game Awards, real quick. I mean, Game of the Year, Astrobot. These are the nominees. Astrobot, Balatro. I'm saying that wrong. I threw a little Italian in there. Black Myth Wukong, Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erd Tree, of course, the DLC. We'll talk about that. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and Metaphor. So, I mean, I have all the other categories here, too, so if you guys want to know the categories for something else, we can talk about it. But Game of the Year usually gets most of the hype. When it comes down to it, Kofi, there seems to be a little less, I want to say angst or just a little less excitement. There's none of that real battle. Is it because, sometimes we want to see two big games go head to head? I know people are a little pissed off that I know Mr. Badbit would have said it wasn't a problem. I think he even said he's voting for it, but DLC is in there now. I mean, where are you on the Game Awards? I enjoy the Game Awards now more for like an E3. It's like a winter E3 at this point.
I know a lot of people are critical of, I forget how to say his last name. Is it Jeff Keighley?
Keighley.
I don't even know. Keighley.
Jeff Keighley.
Anyway, I like his excitement, and I like that he tries to bring new announcements to the award show.
Agreed. So, yes.
In the vein that you're talking about, I do like the general healthiness of a E3-esque experience,
right?
In terms of announcements. Yeah. For the list of Game of the Year, generally disappointed within kind of two levels. No, I do not like Shadow of the Erd Tree being in there. It just, to me, we already are in a type of gaming world where there's just so many games that go unrecognized. I couldn't imagine being a developer for Steam exclusively, have my game come out for it only to be 95th recognized game released for that week. It's absolutely insane. And for a DLC to get recognized for that, I think is a joke. Two, I've seen some counter arguments that remakes and DLC should both be excluded, and that would include Final Fantasy VII Remake. I can respect that argument. I do think that we could have a couple of more categories and I think moving Final Fantasy VII Remake into some sort of remake / DLC bucket or category, I think that's much more reasonable.
Yeah.
So that new IPs feel like it's worth making a new IP. There are so many publishers that are scared, right? They got scared money. They're like, let's just make a sequel. Let's just make a spinoff because we gotta make some return.
Yeah.
And if you
absolutely
honestly leave a space for somebody to get recognized for something really new, like what was that co-op game that came out under? Was it under EA? I remember.
Take-Two.
Take-Two.
Yeah, it takes two.
A Way Out.
Fair.
Yeah,
Shout
Take-Two,
out,
that's it.
exactly. Yeah, the developers of A Way Out. That great job, right? They had a idea that they had iterated on, but the story was original for them. The a lot of their execution was much better than A Way Out. And I applaud them. And there are other games. Greece, didn't they win? Was it Greece or was it the not Greece? What was the other game? It was a platformer. I'm forgetting the name. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, help. Can we get another hint?
Greece, no, it was Greece, right? GRIS, Greece.
When did it?
No, I don't think it won. It got nominated.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
But nominations like that, I'm more okay with, because it can really change the landscape of gaming. Now, in terms of Balatro, I've seen a lot of back and forth on this, some hot takes. I'm kind of neutral. I always want to play new roguelikes because I'm bad at them. I love Returnal. I'm not good at it. I love Dead Cells. I am not good at it. So anytime a new roguelike comes
not
out,
every
I'm
not every roguelike is the same, right? And I mean, and of course, with the card game, it's completely different. But I'm saying, like Hades, for example, Hades for me. I still play that, and that still presents some challenge. Returnal, I loved, I platinumed, I played it over, and I beat it, and I beat it again, and I beat it again. I just kept playing it over and over and over again. Like that, so they're not all the same in that sense. They have they're all a little different. Go ahead. I'm sorry when you're saying, because you think you're bad at it. I don't think you're bad at it. You're probably just bad at the one you played.
Probably.
Yeah,
I completely agree. I think sometimes I completely agree with what you're saying. And so when I see a roguelike that gets execution to what's so interesting? I discovered Balatro like literally a week before its announcement as a nominee. And it wasn't through a gaming channel. It was like through like a gambling channel that kind of funneled into a streaming channel. And then this guy was playing Balatro. And I'm like, what is this? And to see so many non-gamers or like streamers or, communities that weren't really into the fantastical stories or the sci-fi stories, just playing a roguelike poker game was really interesting. So I know why it got really popular. It's almost like why Stray was so hyped up, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people who might be huge cat lovers or love cats in media. We're like, oh, well, I'm definitely buying Stray right now.
I gotta play that. Right. I gotta have
it. Like literally money's leaving my account as I'm talking. And I think it's very similar for Balatro. I've seen, people bash other games just to make sure Balatro gets its hype. So it's gone both ways. I'm remaining neutral. I probably will get it because it's on sale for like $17 on PSN. Just so I can have an educated opinion about it.
It's a great point. Actually, it's $17. How do you not buy that for $17? You speaking of $17, Amazon was advertising Armored Core. Was it Armored Core 6? It was a physical edition for $19.99, but it wasn't the Armored Core 6. It was Red something or another. Is that the DLC?
Oh, it's probably a repackaged, maybe with some of the updates on disc. To give a little history, at least what I can remember, every single Armored Core has been re-released with a with some additional subtitle that it would include extra missions or things like that. But I didn't know Fires of the Rubicon had done that. I'm trying to think if I had noticed that, but maybe they just did it under the radar.
Shout out to Brian East. He's just an update on. Is it? How do you say it? I'm not saying it right. Balatro.
So
Balatro.
Yeah, the developers actually came out and said it comes from. I think it comes from Latin, right? So it's supposed to be Balatro, like the intonation starts high. Balatro instead of Balatro. But the developers came out. They're like, we don't care. we're making money.
Oh yeah, we don't really care.
You can call whatever you want. So,
Brian, he says it's on CD Keys. There's a discount for you can get it down to $9 on Steam if that helps.
Yeah,
Shout out to Brian East.
Yeah.
You
I'll
can,
be honest,
because it's
Go ahead, Singer.
No,
Finish your thought.
go on. Yeah, go on. Singer.
the Game of the Year thing is. See, I would personally kick out Shadow of the Erdtree, and I'd throw in Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, because I think
Okay.
I think the guys over there deserve a shout out at the Game Awards, because it's like Golden Joysticks had it perfect. Golden Joysticks had an award for Best Expansion. Shadow of the Erdtree won it. That makes perfect sense in my head. I'm like, yeah, okay, Best Expansion, cool. Was it, it's like, don't throw it in the Game of the Year. And I noticed Jeff covered his ass because he put out that tweet where it's like, we are now including expansions and remakes and whatnot. And I'm like, so when the Cyberpunk DLC came out, why didn't you make this statement back then for it to get nominated? Because the Cyberpunk DLC was quality, and if you're going to nominate Shadow of the Erdtree, you may as well throw that in it. Oh no, we're only doing it this year because we love From Software, and Jeff is probably the best bootlicker in the industry. I'm just going to call it as it is. I mean, he is, right?
Well, the thing is, you do have to. So don't get me wrong. I know where you're coming from, Singer. I completely do. The only thing I give Jeff credit for every year is this, like. He does, and listen, gamers don't agree with this, so I understand. They want a fast-paced, show me the games, let the people who win awards, let them have their time to talk. Don't play them off with music and then let Kojima talk for an hour and a half. I get that. But the one thing that Jeff did do, and if you guys watched all the way back, and I know you guys have been, is the Game Awards were kind of comical, right? No one took it serious. Nobody knew. Nobody cared. And now he's gotten millions upon millions of people to watch this show. Yes, how did he do it? He did it with advertisers. He did it with bringing in, celebrities that don't game and say they game. I get it. I really do. But at least it brings some attention, and it's positive, and it brings new game announcements and awareness to gaming, which is kind of cool. That's the only thing, Singer. I know what you're saying. I know where you're going. You're going on because we all know Jeff from following him on X, and we know what he likes and what he doesn't like. So I get that. But he did bring something. You remember the year that he did it with Joel McHale, and it didn't go over well at all. That was like a really bad one. It's come a long way from there. Is my point.
Thing is, I respect his hustle and what he does.
Yeah. But
the thing is, I don't like you completely change the rules just because Shadow of the Erdtree existed.
Yeah, I agree.
You completely flipped the script for one particular thing. And you can't even say it was the remake angle because Silent Hill 2 didn't even get nominated. So that whole remake in there was bullshit.
The other thing, Singer, that we don't talk about, I only saw a few people bring this up so far, and one person in the chat. Singer, the other thing about the Erdtree DLC is it's not like you could buy it. If you never played Elden Ring, you have to get to a certain threshold or a certain point in Elden Ring to play it.
Yes.
So certain DLCs you can buy and just play, even if you didn't play through the other game or play it. This one you had to get to a certain part, right? So isn't that's also a unique trait for a DLC, is it not? Or am I? Whenever I buy DLC, it's because I already played the other game I played the original game to death. So that's not usually a problem I run into. So I can't say that I have a list of examples. But that seemed like that may be another standout reason that people were a little upset with this.
Hey, people would be upset because I personally think Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth should have got a nomination instead. Because Yakuza games have always been the way they are. And I think they've done such great work. They deserve one of these nominations. Just put some respect on their name, give them the shine that they deserve, and put it up there, because it is one of the best games this year. My personal game of the year is Metaphor. No surprises. I know, shocker. But it's like, just take Shadow of the Erdtree out. They won with Elden Ring. You don't need to put them back in there for a DLC when people made whole-ass games and put blood, sweat, and tears and effort into it, just to get shunned because you love Miyazaki.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure it's gonna win the award. That's the sad thing.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's gonna win.
I don't.
It's gonna be.
You guys really think so? You think that's? I don't think that'll win.
I think it.
I think it's
I wouldn't
between
put it
Final.
past them.
I think.
I really wouldn't put it past
Well,
them
listen.
if that wins.
Listen. Nothing would make me fall out of my chair, so I'm with you on that, Singer. But I think we're talking Final Fantasy VII Rebirth or Astrobot. I think that's where we're at.
The thing is, I want Metaphor to win.
No, Metaphor deserves it. I don't think it. Yeah, go ahead.
The thing is, I think he'll either be Astrobot or he'll be Shadow of the Erdtree.
Wow.
I don't think Rebirth will top those two, because Astrobot, very special. Shadow of the Erdtree, everyone knows what it is, and it's Miyazaki, and it is fantastic, but it's still a DLC at the end of the day. It's not a full game. So I would, if I had to pick right now who would win, it'd either be between Astrobot and Shadow of the Erdtree.
Well, Lionel in the chat says, Mooch, Witcher Blood and Wine got nominated for a role-playing game of the year. Phantom Liberty got nominated for best ongoing game, and no one batted an eye. But they weren't game of the year.
Yeah, they weren't game of the year.
We're talking about game of the year.
The most prestigious award.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's.
I have to admit, like, I know you guys love Balatro, but having beaten it, got a high score of like 1.8 million or something in a single hand, I personally don't see it. I think it's a fun game and it's addictive, but it doesn't have that like depth, complexity, broadness, like ambition or whatever of some of the titles that we're typically used to seeing win Game of the Year awards, if that makes sense. Like it's a really good like side game almost, and I don't mean that to like demean indie games, because like Hades I could have easily put up my Game of the Year. There's been indie games that I've absolutely phenomenal, you know, like across the board, but Balatro is just not one of those for me. Like, it's a really fun game, I'd give it a decent score, but having it as a Game of the Year contender, I can't see it. But I guess it's really caught on because like a Singer, you really love it as well, right? No?
I haven't played it. I just see all the hype. I haven't played. I've seen all the hype about it, and I absolutely adore poker. So it's well at my street.
Well,
like,
see,
the thing is,
let me just say this, Nib, real quick, because Lionel says, Mooch, the point was that they're all DLCs, not new games, so everyone should have so he said should have been just as outraged. Lionel, no, because the outrage is coming because of the category. Not because DLC was nominated for a DLC or best ongoing category. The outrage is because DLC is being put into... Here's the thing. Elden Ring won Game of the Year. So the game won. It's now eligible to win Game of the Year again. You know? So that's... How about all the people that worked really hard this year that have great games out there and recognizing somebody else? Like, by the way, we tip our cap. And should there be a category? Detzinger, you're saying this, right? Same thing like the Golden Joysticks, right? Awards have their own category for DLC.
They do. They have their own category.
Yeah, I know they do. I'm saying Jeff should have his own category for DLC.
He really should. But
Jeff
I
should
don't
have
know
his
why.
own
I really don't know why he does it. I don't know why
the Game Awards.
But also on the point of DLC getting nominated for best ongoing, well, a DLC is adding to the game, so the game is still ongoing. It's not finished, so that makes sense. But the thing is, this is the top award. This is the biggest one. Like, yeah, winning best RPG is fine, but what you want is the Game of the Year, and a DLC should not be there. Now, the whole remake argument is whatever, but I just don't.
Yeah,
this is tailor-made just for Shadow of the Erdtree, and that is what sticks in my. It's just.
I will say, like, I heard someone else talking about this, and I don't know, a guy called Cheat Code on Twitter. A lot of people hate him, but he makes some good points, and he was giving his arguments. And one of the things he was saying is, look, if it was a standalone DLC, then fine, that's a different thing, right? Like, you can buy it on its own, but this, like, you have to have basically beaten Elden Ring, or at least got quite far into it. And you need to have a different separate product on top, right? So not only do you need this other product, you need to be quite deep into it. Then you buy this other thing. And so I think for that for those reasons, I can see why like people want it out of this equation, because it's not a standalone game. It's literally a an addition to another game that you have to have played the other game for. So, I think it is a bit contentious. And me personally, I wouldn't, maybe it shouldn't be included. I do, for my own personal game of the years, I do include DLC, but only because the way I do it is if I played it for more than 10 hours, it's enough of longevity sink for me to include it in a game of the year. But if I was a prestigious outlet such as Game Awards, I wouldn't personally include DLC. I would just make a separate category for it. I still don't understand why there isn't, because every year, we're having this discussion. Last year, I remember there was a discussion. It's like, why is Phantom Liberty going in the ongoing section? Ongoing should be more for games that have like routine, whether it's season passes and things like that. Whereas a DLC is not necessarily ongoing or an expansion, it's something that comes much later. And now we're having the same discussion whether expansions and DLC count as games now, like for the full thing. So I think, like, rather than all this controversy every year, just have a new category for expansions and DLC and call it a day, because there is enough of them now. Even yet last year, this year, sorry, between Resident Evil and Horizon Forbidden West and this, and there's a non-stop influx of these expansions that I think it deserves its own category now.
Babor Contri says PC gamers are the judges. He says 21 Deathloop instead of Returnal, 22 Elden Ring versus God of War. We know the better software is God of War. 24, he's saying, I believe he's saying 2024, Metaphor /DLC versus, he says, Remake Stellar. So, Babor, I don't know if did you mean, I don't know what you mean by Remake Stellar. Did you mean Rebirth, and it should have been Rebirth and Stellar Blade? I don't know. He put it in shorthand, so I don't know if that's what he meant. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I appreciate the super chat. The great Babor Contri, everybody, is back. I love it.
My problem with that super chat is, I noticed something with the super chat.
What's that?
Tell you're a PlayStation fanboy, because you are comparing all these PlayStation only games to
Death Singer,
because you notice he said Deathloop instead of Returnal, PlayStation game. Elden God of War.
Oh no, Death Singer, I don't mean to.
Game. Stellar Blade. Come on now.
No,
we see what's going on.
Not to ruin your courtroom grandstand there, Death Singer, but Babor is openly, definitely a Sony PlayStation super fan. There's no way. I've known Babor now for about, I think, 5 years. He's been showing. Maybe Babor, how long have you been coming to the show now? He's definitely. So your hypothesis is correct, Death Singer, but he doesn't hide that. That's for sure.
I mean, he doesn't hide it. I'm just saying there's a fundamental flaw with the argument. Because it's coming from a bias. But arguably, it's like, whatever wins Game of the Year is whatever the critics absolutely adore that year. So, I mean, it could be anything. Like, if Astrobot wins, I'm sure you'll be cheering. If, I don't know, let us say Baltra wins Game of the Year, or Shadow of the Erdtree wins Game of the Year, it'd be like, oh, robbed. Even though I don't think Shadow of the Erdtree should even be a nomination, but I mean, it's whatever the critics love. And if the critics think I think Black Myth Wukong, definitely, I was worried it wouldn't get a nomination. Thank goodness it did, because that would have been an outrage, because, I mean, that made one of the biggest splashes this year.
Yeah, no, for sure. Do you think that, speaking of splashes, and Singer, you alluded to this earlier, I'm shocked that Helldivers 2 didn't make an appearance there? That was quite a splash. A lot of people, go ahead.
Helldivers, I just don't think, like, the thing is you have to put it up, what do the critics view? And it's like, clearly the people nominated like Final Fantasy VII over stuff like that, Rebirth, Astrobot. Games will just get snubbed all the time. Like Infinite Wealth got snubbed, Stellar Blade got snubbed, and it always happens every single year. But when you look, get snubbed.
When you look, exactly, and don't get me wrong, there's no right or wrong. I'm posing some questions here, but when you look at like Balatro, right, and then you look at like Helldivers 2, right? I think you could see either camp saying that could have went either way, right, as far as the nomination.
Yeah, it could have. It could have. Like, anything could have got up. I would have put Space Marine 2 up there. But, it's like a lot of good games, not everything could be nominated because there's only 6 spaces. And Jeff likes to keep it pretty diverse. Like, typically, you'd always have a Nintendo game up there. Does it deserve to be up there? Maybe, maybe not. But, you need to appease Nintendo.
The Mario brother got snubbed, and so did the Zelda game.
And that was curious, how the Nintendo... But then it's like, I don't know. It's just one of these things where the Game
I'm
Awards
really
does it every
surprised.
year.
Yeah,
I'm really surprised Black Myth Wukong is up there because
Why?
critical reception from jurors or whatever, from media outlets was not that strong. It's like 82 or 81 or something. Yet it is in the running for Game of the Year, ahead of games that scored far better critically than it did. So I do think that is surprising. I'm surprised you don't think.
I mean, to be fair though, Black Myth won Game of the Year for
No.
Golden Joystick.
I know. I'm just saying, why is there then this disparity between the critical reception and it winning awards? Because if you look back at the data, we've actually never had that discrepancy before. Because historically, like even last year, if you look at the spread of the games that got a nomination and their Metacritic, the lowest scoring game, Alan Wake 2, was 89. Everything else was in the 90s. And historically, that trend follows. The only time you fall into the 80s is when it hasn't been such a strong year. But this is quite a strong year where you have multiple 90 rated games, and yet an 82 rated game is being awarded. Now, don't get me wrong. I gave the game a 9.5. I think it's phenomenal. It's up there in the top 3 for me. I love it. But yeah, I'm just surprised because why didn't the critics mesh with it as much, and whereas users did? Because if you look on Steam, I think it's like 93% on Steam, Black Myth Wukong, and on PlayStation Store it's like 90, I think. So clearly, like the public have enjoyed it. But yeah, I mean, just curious.
The Game Awards is just a popularity contest, though. What's popular with all the judges, right? Because all the publications, the 100 and whatever, they all have to submit their votes, right? What are your 6 nominations? Kotaku, what's your 6 nominations? IGN, what's your 6 nominations? Etc. Etc. And then you see who gets the most. And clearly, more people thought Black Myth Wukong should have been in it. So I mean, despite the meta being what it is, it must have had more votes than other things. So it's just a popularity contest.
So the thing that's interesting about that, I don't necessarily agree that it is a popularity contest, because we've had winners in the past that are not necessarily the most popular of the games that released. Otherwise, something like Call of Duty would be up there every year. But I will say, like, maybe what's happened is, like, say within an outlet, like there's 7 people that could review it. A lot of the ones that did review it were most critical, whereas the rest in the team enjoyed it a lot more. And I don't want to like throw conspiracies out there because I don't usually agree with these kind of things, but there was controversy around Black Myth Wukong with the I think like sexism and racism stuff, and then there was also the whole CCP angle, right? It's the Chinese Communist Party, so I wonder if that played into it a little bit. But now people have had more time with the game. Obviously, it's a very difficult game. Maybe they've gone back to it, or they've given it more time. They've actually played more of it, and now they've come around to it. But it is a really interesting and curious thing. But I do know, like, some of the reviews, for example, the Slant review, which was one of the most negative reviews of the game, in the review, she mentions that, like, she says in one line, like, oh, there wasn't enough like female diversity or whatever, but she only played up until chapter 2. So in my head, that was weird, because I was like, why would you review a game and you've only got to 2 out of like 6 chapters? Like, I've never seen that before. So
that's the thing with the publications is, bear in mind, Metacritic reviews are generally written by one reviewer. Now, if you go to the publication, there's more than one person there. So if in the publication you have 20 reviewers, they're all playing people who aren't even reviewers are playing the game, and they go, okay, so let's have a group huddle in work, hit the alarm, everyone get in the office, and it's like, okay, so what are we nominating? And it comes up whatever it comes up, and winners aren't predicted. It's like when you saw Red Dead Redemption 2, and everyone was like, oh, it's going to be Game of the Year, and it's like, no, and it got pipped at the line, and it's like, so you can't base it on. I just think the reviewers did the review, but they are only one individual. That's only one individual's point of view. that's not the consensus of the majority.
No, Max.
So I think.
Go ahead, finish. I'm sorry, that's here.
Oh no, so it's like I personally think it should have been nominated because of how big it is, and it might be a case of Jeff wants the Chinese audience to tune into the Game Awards. That could be it as well.
Yeah, so I was thinking that. But he doesn't. The jurors are like the same basically outlets that it kind of always has been, right? Unless he's added a lot of Chinese gaming outlets that we just don't know about. Because one thing that is interesting is they haven't revealed the outlets this year. Every year you can see the outlets this year.
Yeah, they do. Yep.
Yeah, so maybe he did actually add a bunch of like Chinese gaming outlets that.
It's because you want the Chinese viewership, right? Because
100% money.
Like they came out supported in droves in the game. The Chinese community showed out with Black Myth Wukong, and Jeff is there like, how do I increase my numbers this year? Put Black Myth in the game of the week.
I think it's funny we're saying all this, but I think Black Myth Wukong probably is it could be a silent winner. It could be like a dark horse because I think it might win. I think it could actually. Well, listen. The reason I say that is you have shout out to Max Mini here in the chat, and Max Mini says, "Look at the top 5 Ultimate Game of the year for joysticks. It's almost the same." He says almost the same, but Helldivers 2, Silent Hill 2, then Metaphor, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and Black Myth Wukong. Of course, Helldivers 2 and Silent Hill 2 not involved with Jeff's. He says Black Myth Wukong won Golden Joysticks Ultimate Game of the Year today, which is all player choice. And you guys have made, while we're sitting here, very interesting cases of how the Metacritic score may have been how it was originally deemed, but how after it got into the players' hands and how people feel now and how people vote today, months and months later, might result in a win for Black Myth Wukong. You know, I mean, I do think that I wasn't putting enough. I'm reading everything in the chat here. I'm listening to you guys. I thought this was going to be pretty much. I really thought Final Fantasy VII Rebirth would win it. It's an outstanding game, very well made, outstanding. You guys definitely should try it if you haven't. But Black Myth Wukong again. I got. Oh my god! I gotta be at least. What am I? I'm still in the third world. I didn't go back to it since I think I talked to you, Nib. And you know, I just. For me personally, to go and combat and try. So each time you go back to the, I call it the incense save location, if you will, the fire, if you will, from the flame from like Dark Souls and things like that. Like you go back there, you can completely scrap all of your perks, then go back in and change them, and you change them as you're fighting different, foes and enemies. And like for me, it's like I don't look at anything. I'm just going and I'm trying different things out. And that novelty of trying different things out and seeing if this will work against this enemy and seeing if this combination of skill sets will work against this enemy. And I don't know. For me, it started to grow old after I got to like the third world. I know others absolutely adore the game. So it's a very good game. I just, for some reason, it just grew a little old on me. That's why I'm picking a little bit more with what I prefer to play. But Black Myth Wukong really was a hell of a game, and if it won, you won't hear me on the air saying that it shouldn't have won. I'll tell you that much. I will
say as well, Mooch. I think one of the things with the way you game, it seems to me like you juggle quite a lot of different games simultaneously, at least you're.
That is true.
Yeah, and I think with this one, it's one of those where like, you kind of need to pipe down and focus because it's so mechanically demanding and difficult. Like, with the muscle memory and everything like that, you need to pan down. But I think because you're moving around a lot, it's going to be difficult each time you jump in.
I do play usually like 3 or 4 games at one time, and I notice that you play one at a time, Nib, and I'm actually jealous that you're able to do that. I
I do that. Yeah, I will say like Balatro, I can understand, like it's an indie game, right? I think maybe only less than a handful of people made it. Fine, the expectations are different. The pricing is different. I think I paid like £10 on it on PSN. So, it's a whole different ball games. But I will say, and I know I might get stick from this from Kofi, because I can tell he's like a, anime / Japanese game nut. But I would probably be disappointed if Metaphor ReFantazio won. Don't get me wrong. I really enjoyed the game. And I've beaten the game. I put like nearly 100 hours. I, have done basically all the side stuff in it. But the reason I say is like Metaphor ReFantazio, it's a very aged product, and even though it has so many good qualities, and the gameplay is competent, and the story is really cool, and I know some people will say gameplay is king. I agree, gameplay is king, but it doesn't mean you get to rest on your laurels on everything else. And that, in terms of optimization, in terms of graphics, in terms of rendering technology, is so far behind. I don't know if we should be rewarding stuff like that. And I put a tweet on it. I know it's only going to appeal to very few people, but there's basically a developer who went through and deconstructed the game, took out all the files and rendering, and went through it with a fine comb to find out why it ran the way it did and what was going wrong. And he uncovered all sorts of things that were like really poorly optimized about it. Like most of it was down to shadow culling and geometry culling and things like that. They basically don't have any of that stuff in the game. Stuff that games have been doing for like 3-4 decades. So he was saying, like, if they just added this one bit of code here or changed the way they did this, it could add this many milliseconds to the rendering time. If you did this, you could add this many. And basically just this developer was saying he could essentially double the frame time of the game just by making a few tweaks. So, it's not a case of, oh, they just didn't focus on it or didn't put the money on it. It's just on the tech side of things, they're just not that competent or didn't put in the effort or whatever. And I think, like, for me, I want Game of the Years that they don't have to be like benchmark setting in graphics, but at least like decent, at least efforted.
Yeah.
And I think as much as it does all the other things well, there are certain things about Metaphor. It's just too primitive, and I don't think that should be rewarded.
I think I see. I'm going to kind of point that, and I think it should, because it is genuinely a good game, regardless of graphics. It's like this whole graphics and technology thing, and I play a lot of games with none of that shit in it, but they're absolutely fantastic games. And
but give me examples of the games.
Give me an example of great rendering or graphics. It's like I
no. Like the games you said that have rubbish graphics but really good. Tell me them. What games?
Rubbish graphics. Okay, so. Pillars of Eternity is actually kind of good looking, but a lot of people say it's just top game PC garbage. But I mean, I think Stellaris is a fantastic game. Will never get nominated, and it's just dots on the screen. Pretty much, you could zoom in and look at ships.
But like, made by what? Special. Made by 2-3 people, right?
So, no. Again, it's made by a pretty big team. It's a 4X strategy game, right? So you know what kind of visuals you get.
Oh, sorry, I was thinking of that dwarf game. The one I'm talking about, where it's like ASCII or whatever. Because I think that was made by like 2 people. So I can understand that. Like, if you're the price you're charging, this is like a $70 game, right? And it is actually a AAA game. So I just think the expectations are slightly different. Like, if you're going to try, and I get what you're saying. Again, like, I don't mind, but that's why I would be surprised if you listed another AAA game that had the same quirks. Because
the thing is, the way I view the Game of the Year is great games. They need to be great games, regardless of budget. AAA, AA. If you are a fantastic game, a game you could sit down and go, wow, that was a 10 out of 10 experience. It's like Baldur's Gate 3, right?
Yeah.
Nothing much in the visuals department. It's top
No, but it's decent, though.
It's just but it's a fantastic game, and it totally deserved it. That's what I focus on, is
with
this
Baldur's
game
Gate,
fantastic? Go on.
I disagree with Baldur's Gate, because like Baldur's Gate actually had really strong animations, voice acting. So the things that, like, let's just say it's a very narrative heavy game, right? So they realized this is a narrative heavy game, story, exposition and stuff is our primary focus. So they really went to town on that stuff. Like, if you compare that to, say, Starfield, right, and look at the animation work and the voice acting in Baldur's Gate, I'd say it's actually some of the best. Different league, it's some of the best you can get. So I actually wouldn't agree that technically it's not adept. It may not be, like, rendering wise the best looking game, but it's still, I would say, actually better than good. I would say very good. And all I'm saying is good. I would say Metaphor's not even good. It's like really bad. Like, I would say it's like.
I think we'd have to disagree on that, because I think it's a really good game regardless of these issues. but also I'm about to get killed. Kofi's probably going to kill me. I personally would eject Final Fantasy VII Rebirth out of the nominations, and I'd put Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth in, and I'd kick out Shadow of the Erdtree, and I'd put Space Marine 2 in, because I just think they're better games. I know people are going to go, well, 7 Rebirth is one of the... Yeah, but it's just not my cup of tea, and I think these games are better. But
have you played Rebirth?
I haven't played Rebirth, but from what I've played, I can't...
No.
Like, I can justify Astrobot in there, but if I'm making a Game of the Year list...
if you haven't played them, you can't say. I've played every single game on there, so I can say...
No. But I would eject it from the nominations and put Infinite Wealth in its place, because Infinite Wealth scored a 90+ rated game. It is a fantastic game all around. Sure, it's a bit dated, whatever.
Let me ask you a question, Singer. Would you promote to folks to play Infinite Wealth, or is it Ishin?
Oh, 100%. Or 100%. I would tell everyone to go play Infinite Wealth, even if you're not.
Infinite Wealth is 89, by the way, on Metacritic.
Oh, 89. Either way, I would recommend everyone play it, because it is genuinely a fantastic game, especially when you come from the previous game, Like a Dragon.
Yeah.
Obviously, once you play Like a Dragon, it continues the story. And it has a great... Like, the ending is fantastic. They updated the gameplay. There's more, like, mini-games and stuff. It has that fun quirkiness to it. But I just think it's like, when I look at games... Persona 3 Reload... That could even be a nomination, because Persona 3 Reload, I know it's just a remake, but I personally think that should be up there, because that Persona 3 Reload is genuinely a fantastic game. But, is it dated? Yeah, but, I mean, would you have a problem with Persona 3 Reload being up there?
I don't know. I haven't played it. I don't like to knock games off that I haven't played, because I just think that's not fair. If I haven't played it, how would I know if it deserves it or not? So I have played Space Marine 2. I have played all the other games you listed. I've beaten every game in the Game of the Year list. So but I will say, going back to the point you made about it's just the gameplay that matters. The thing is with conversations like that, there's entire teams of people who devote so much of their life and effort and artistry to art, visuals, tech, sound, all those other things. And for me, I like to kind of consider and appreciate that, right? Because if you took the time and the effort and the budget and the money to sample this music or this orchestra, or you have so many instrumentals in your sound design, or with the video visuals, or with the texture work of the art, I think we should reward those things, because there's so many people putting their heart and soul into that, and for a game not to do as much of that stuff and still get the same reward, I don't know. I agree gameplay is king, but we should still value those other things. It would be
go on.
Yeah, I was going to say, it would be imagine sort of the Oscars, only the writing mattered or something, and the cinematography didn't matter, the lighting didn't matter, the acting didn't matter. It's a combination. It's a combination of all these things that makes a product what it is. And fundamentally, gaming is still a visual medium. So I still think the visuals and the art direction,
the visuals definitely play a role, Nib. There's no around it. There's a term that I don't remember it exactly, but it's basically just not absence. It's the opposite of absence makes the heart grow fonder. When you look at games when you're talking about Infinite Wealth just now, Death Singer, that game came out in January, I believe. And
it did.
Right now, of course, Elden Ring would prove me wrong. That's why I'm trying to give you both sides. But majority of the time, Helldivers came out in February, I believe. And so when you look at it, a lot of people always say that your game needs to release from May forward. To get a real good shot. You know what I mean? People say that all the time because the earlier games kind of get snubbed a bit. You know what I mean? So do you think that there's any truth to that? I'm of course never speaking absolutes. That's not 100% true. But I think people have that short-term memory a bit on it.
I'm trying to think. Go ahead, Jessica. I'm sorry.
Oh no! I was gonna just quickly. I don't think it is, because I'm pretty sure games have been nominated from early in the year. I just think it's just generally the early mid to the year is kind of compared to the end of the year. Because if you think about it, the games that released this year, you look to the beginning of the year and you're like, great game, great game, great game. But there's nothing really. But then when you get to around, like, 7 Rebirth came out, that was in the beginning of the year. That was like March, right?
Rebirth was...
Rebirth?
Yes. I want to say yes, March.
Yeah. So like that's the beginning of the year.
That was February, like the 29th.
Hold on.
February.
I'm looking it up right now.
28th or 9th, yeah.
Yeah, see, so that proves it right there. It's just, it doesn't matter where you release. It's just whatever traction you pick up and what the people think.
Yeah, I think some of
February 29th. Yep.
The year winners have actually been early releases. Because I remember Last of Us was like beginning half of the year.
Mm-hmm.
I think God of War, the 2018, was beginning half of the year. Maybe May, if I remember correctly. They've had quite a few early release ones. But yeah, maybe February is pushing it. But
yeah, I mean, listen, like I said, I just remember a lot of people saying that sometimes they see some of their favorite games, they're not nominated. And a lot of times it's because all this hype, all this anticipation for the games we've been playing September, October, November really hit hard. And sometimes that flare is just kind of worn out since it came out in January, February. Listen, I'm not saying that's true. I'm just saying it seems to be a trend that sometimes pokes its ugly head. Babor Country, I asked him how long he'd been here. Babor says 5 years. Quality should win, he says, when it comes to the Game Awards. The fact that From Software has inferior engineers. Tell me what game meets its performance target on the intended platform. He comes back and says, then he agrees with you guys. Yes, artist, story. We're not toddlers. Gameplay, 60%. Shout out to the great Babor Country, who's not a big From Software fan, apparently, or at least not as big as some of the others. I know.
To the panel, right? Yes. Of the games that are listed, but here's the thing: you can only choose games that you've actually beaten and played, right? Of the games that are nominated, what would be your game of the year?
Okay, that's where I was going to go to end the show. I was going to go ahead. You're saying
I have
Metaphor?
not finished Metaphor, so I couldn't vote.
Okay.
So now with your stipulation, Nib, just so I've beaten and platinumed Astrobot. Astrobot would probably be my second pick. I'm not going to be able to qualify because of Nib's rules and regulations.
Oh, okay.
But I waited for the pro. I waited for the pro to finish. I just got not that I knew about. I'm just saying, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I still have probably. I still have 25% of that game to play. I'm going to enjoy the rest of it on the pro. But my pick is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. But I don't think it's gonna win. That's my pick though.
I would also pick Rebirth.
Okay. What about you, Singer?
Metaphor, of course. The one and only. The
GOAT. Where are you going?
I'm a Tensei fan, so I think I'm gonna end up loving it.
Yeah, okay. I mean, it's like, Metaphor just ticks all the boxes. Personally, though, it's like the RPG category kills me. It wounds me inside. The best RPG of the year, because Infinite Wealth and Metaphor are in there, and I love both games. So I'm sat there crying inside because I can't choose between the two. So I left the category alone, and then I was like, you know what? Since Metaphor got nominated for Game of the Year, I'll give it to Infinite Wealth. That was my reasoning for picking it, but making me pick between two of my favorite children, oh man, I couldn't do it.
I'm going with Astrobot, but truthfully, if Black Myth Wukong or Rebirth won, I wouldn't. Who
are you going for though, Nib? Who did you pick?
Astrobot. I will say as well, if Balatro does win or Shadow of the Erdtree, I will personally take great enjoyment of it, just because of the salt that will be on social media. So, because I don't actually care who wins, right? But if Shadow of the Erdtree does win because of all this DLC stuff, and the salt will be so epic, and I'm there for it, basically. I'm there for it.
I'm there for it because I remember when Baldur's Gate 3 won, I personally picked it should win, and everyone was telling me, no. And it's like, I'm a massive CRPG fan, and I was like, Baldur's Gate is the quintessential game, and everyone was like, it's not going to win.
I don't even consider it a CRPG. I just think it's a king in its own right of like RPGs.
The thing is, I put it in the CRPG because it's got the whole D&D dice rolling luck.
Yeah, I understand.
It's very much rooted in the D&D aspect, so I kind of put it into the same category as like a Pillars of Eternity or Pathfinder or something like that.
Tears of the Kingdom was my game of the year that year. I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed Baldur's Gate 3, but I think it was a bit too exposition heavy for me at times, especially chapter 3. I just felt like when I got
I
to
love all that narrative goodness. Give it to me.
Yeah, me too.
It's like at points I was like, this should have just.
Death Singer, you strike me as the kind of person who loves Xenosaga Episode 1.
Thing is, I love exposition. I love getting stuck into the world, and then it's like, I'm in the world. Now keep me here, and then they just drag you in. They just drag you in with the narrative. It gets so compelling.
I'll tell you what I find, which I think is cool. I think that's awesome that you do enjoy that. But this is the thing I find like comical about some of the fanboy narratives or the platform war narratives, because I find a lot of people, and I'm not saying you, I'm talking about on Twitter, right, who criticize movie games, quote unquote, for having heavy dialogue, cutscenes, or whatever. If you see some of their like favorite games at Game of the Years and stuff, exposition, they would. Oh, sorry. They have so much exposition, some of their Game of the Years, that they make games like The Last of Us look like a gameplay heavy game. And I always find this ironic. And other times they'll also say like, walking simulators, but then they'll pick RPGs where like 70% of the time you're walking. So I always find this like dichotomy interesting.
I think that's unfair though, because RPGs are more than some of their parts. Like, there's a lot of exposition.
So are cinematic games, though.
But the thing is, it's like a Detroit Become Human, right? Versus this. Like, a Detroit Become Human, you can make the argument because that's all it is. Where Baldur's Gate is, you're going on an adventure in this world.
I'm talking more about like I'm talking more about like God of War, Last of Us, etc., right? Because they have those derogatory terms thrown at them, even though in reality, if you were to take like a your typical RPG or say WRPG, say like a Skyrim, if you mathematically calculated the amount of time you're spending traversal and exposition versus gameplay, like let's say combat stuff, and you calculated that in like a Last of Us or a God of War, I guarantee you those cinematic walking sims have orders of magnitude more actual gameplay than those other games.
Here's the thing about that. The difference is a good role-playing game allows you to play the role you choose. You get to do what you want.
True.
You have all the player agency. God of War is a very well-told story. But the thing is, you look at The Witcher, I think the story's fantastic. The gameplay is a bit
Yeah.
But when I get into an RPG world, I want to take on my character, my role. I want to role play the game. If I want to be a bad guy, I want to be a bad guy.
Is the best game right now to recommend to people? Is it Baldur's Gate 3 then for someone who's looking for a game like that?
Oh, if you're looking for an RPG, Baldur's Gate 3 is hands down because
it's quintessential.
It is quintessential. It is the D&D experience in a video game, which is. All RPGs are derivatives of D&D.
Has anybody tried Baldur's Gate 3 on the Pro since they've made any some upgrades?
I have not, but it's very. I have seen the analysis, and there's some really, really good improvements. Like in terms of like frame rate difference, like in certain areas, we're talking like 30-40% more frames, so it's pretty decent, I think.
Okay.
Like it takes you like in town. From like sub 30 to like up to the 40s and 50s, I think, from what I remember.
Does Digital Foundry do an analysis of this nib, or was it somebody like NXG? Or
I think NXG Gamer or someone else. I don't think Digital Foundry.
I mean, I always like tons of text in my games anyway. I don't know if Nib's still talking or if he cut out.
No, I'm here. Yeah.
But I love tons of text in my game. Like one of my favorite games of all time is Chrono Trigger, and there's a ton of text in that. But the thing is I want to land in the world. I just want to go. Like Baldur's Gate 3, sure, there's a lot of talking, but all of it is in-game, and it's about the current situation. So if there's exposition, it's like, we need to save these people. That's what they're talking about. It's not just idle chatter or it's about what you're doing in the world, which is why I
agree. I agree, but do you know what? Why? And obviously, this is a me thing. I'm not trying to say like I'm right, you're wrong. I think you're right as well. It's just obviously preference. But I think what detracted for me was there was too many quests at the same time. Like I remember I landed in Act 3, and I must have had like 15 quests going at the same time.
Jeez.
And I just thought, I remember thinking, I was thinking like, yo, hold your ropes. Let me absorb each of these stories and characters before you pile another one on me, because it's just like I almost lost track. I was like, okay, there's this person's got this issue going, this person's got this. I'm just like, yo, hold on. And I kind of had this issue with Horizon Forbidden West as well, where it would have these like side quest dumps. Like you'd arrive in a new area and it would be like, here's all the bloody side quests, here's all the content, here's all the talking, and it's just like, just slow down and pace it out. Let us like, and in that sense, I would say something like a Witcher 3. Maybe some of the side quests, the way they were delivered was the pacing was a little bit better. Like when you did the Bloody Baron or whatever, you had time to really absorb that without like 50 million other quests like getting in your way. Like here's the focus, absorb yourself in that. Whereas with and maybe it was just a me thing, maybe it's just the way I tackled the game.
It probably was just the way you did it, because you can choose to take on the quest or not, and it's like, I'm doing this quest, and do I see a quest giver? Yeah, I see a quest giver, but I'm not going to talk to that person yet because I got a mission. I need to go kill these
That's
goblins.
What it is. That's what it is. For me, it's like because my thing is like, I don't want to like backtrack here to speak to this guy when I'm already here. Let me execute the thing, and then I'll come back to this. But then it's like everybody's an executable side quest, so it's just like, oh my god, like
I mean, it's probably just the way you do it. It's like I just focus on something. It's like when you get in the beginning of Act 1, and the druids ask you to go kill the goblin camp, and I'm like, okay. There's other side quests, but I'm like, yo, I need to go murder
on PC. On PC, that's a point and click game, correct? As far as movement,
for movement,
right? Now, Nib, how do they handle it on PS5? Is it the same thing, or is it you're actually you have a lead in your group and they all follow you around? Like I'm just saying, like it's point and click, so the movement is much like Diablo in the PC version, correct?
Oh no, it's free moving, so you could play it on controller. If you use mouse and keyboard, it would be.
I meant mouse and keyboard.
But you can free move, like you can walk the character around the world. But when you get into like a conversation or combat, then it'll switch to turn based, and then you have the cursor, and you need to click on who you want to attack.
Okay.
So it switches between the two, but you can freely walk about the world. You don't need to be clicking everywhere. You could just walk around.
Right. I was watching a review when it first came out, and it looked like the gentleman was pointing and clicking, and I was like, I don't know if I want to do that for that length of a game. I'm like,
that'd be mouse and keyboard.
It was mouse and keyboard. It was, yeah.
But the thing is, you could play it on controller, and the experience is different. Obviously,
how do you play it though, Death Singer?
I personally play it on mouse and keyboard, but that's because Pillars of Eternity and Divinity and all those kinds of games and the Pathfinder series. Yeah, they Pathfinder did add controller support, but if you try to play the Pillars games, they don't have controller support. They're only playable on mouse and keyboard. So I kind of had no choice. And I know mouse and keyboard gameplay anyway, so I'm fine. The only time I'm not cool with it is if I'm playing like an FPS or something, unless it's Valorant, in which case I could do it. But like, if I'm playing Call of Duty, I got an Xbox controller in hand. I'm not playing on mouse and keyboard.
We'll have to do a Christmas episode with Nib and with Death Singer, and we might as well bring Kofi in too. This games you should buy, and this is why. I got to be honest with you, right? I like this. So you guys are doing great. I do have to wrap the show up. We're hitting 3 hours here. Luckily, I get to go to work tomorrow. That's always fun. Nonetheless, I do want to say outstanding show tonight. I want to say thanks to these guys for hanging out for 3 hours. The other guys had to leave early. We're gonna have to work on Mr. Badbit staying here for a full 2 hours. It's hard to get him to stay here. The great Mr. Badbit. I want to say thanks to the chat for also hanging out with us for 3 hours. Please hit that like button before you guys end up leaving the show. I'll go in reverse order here and say shout out to Kofi. Kofi, listen, I know the sports are done now for a bit, but I will love to have you back on before the Christmas show. So I'll be reaching out, but let everybody know where they can find you. And thanks for being here tonight, Kofi.
Absolutely, guys. You can find me on that weirdly named social media space. I was called Twitter.
Twitter.
Freedom _ Kofi. And I forgot to mention this at the beginning. I played about 500 hours of Remnant 2 since the DLC came out.
Jeez.
I already had 400 hours in the game last year. And that was a huge detractor from me getting back into my RPG flow. So this is why I am so temperamental with Souls games, because then I disappear min-maxing a character forever. And I had to drop it. And now I have all my RPGs here. Like I said, I just got Romancing Saga 2 Remake. I just got the HD 2D of Dragon Quest 3. I just got the Trials of Mana, or Visions of Mana. So I'm going to be playing a lot of RPGs, hopefully posting about them. And of course, I'm playing the latest Trails game that came out in Japan only at the end of September. It is called Kai no Kiseki. I have no idea what it's going to be called when it comes to Western Shores, but so far it's fantastic. 50 hours of that. So lots of RPGs for me to talk about. Hopefully next week a little bit.
Well, looking forward to that, Kofi. Looking forward to hearing what you got to say, and looking forward to your next appearance on the show. Great to have you tonight, and thanks, Kofi, for being here. The great Nib, everybody. It's Nib. Nib, is it Nib95? Yes, it's Nib95 _ I want to go ahead and say you got to follow him on there, because Nib, listen, the things you write, you'll never leave X unless the other place opens up an infinite character limit.
I do have what's it called? Is it Blue Sky or something? I do have an account there. It's Nib95 without the underscore.
How confusing!
So I am on there. On Crap Gamer's favorite app.
Yes, probably where you might not find him there. Yes.
So I am on there. I only do like 1 or 2 tweets, posts or whatever. But yeah, Twitter X NIB95 _ That's where you'll find me.
Great to have you, Nib, as always, buddy. Great to have you guys. Nib was supposed to be on the show last week, but of course, I can't even blame Nib. It is late over there in the UK.
Sorry, dude.
So, it's okay, Nib.
The funny thing is, it's the way I knocked out, because, I literally didn't even have a duvet on, and it's cold. And there's me on the sofa, and I just wake up, drooling, on the sofa. I'm like, oh, shit, I'm still with my headphones on. That's how you know you're getting old.
Buddy, do I know that? The truth. And honestly, it's midnight when we start over there, so completely understand. Nib, great to have you here as always. Also, our great Death Singer, who's from Wales. Okay, let's get that correct. Know your geography, folks. Death Singer, it's also very late, or I should say very early for you as well. But Singer, always great to have you on here. Great conversation. Love your takes on gaming. And let me tell you something. I say it every week, and it's true. It's more and more every week. The audience is just starting to love you. Singer, let people know where they can find you, and I'm looking forward to talking to you again. Well, next week we're going to be on vacation because of Thanksgiving, but nonetheless.
Oh, yeah. It's fantastic. Yeah, I love chopping it up. Shout out to Kofi, fellow Trails, game lover, JRPG. And the thing is, it's I bring value because I play good games you don't.
That's
for the
correct.
Most part.
That is correct.
It's like Frostpunk 2 came out, or Age of Mythology, and it's like, people won't give these games the time of day, but I will, because they're my kind of games, and they're genuinely fantastic games, but people never give them the time of day.
It's true.
Because, they're too busy playing their big AAA games, and I'm cool with that. But for me, I like to stay off the radar for the most part of big AAA games, play them few far between, because personally for me, I think AAA has become a bit stale now. And this is my problem. There's not innovation. There's not much innovation at all now in the AAA space. And I like these smaller games because they actually do something unique. And that's just the way I feel. And I will say, you can find me everywhere. Death Singer, my takes will get you.
Before you go, sorry, Dosei, what do you think is so innovative about Metaphor?
Oh, no, I don't think much is innovative about Metaphor. I'm talking about AA indie games, my guy. I'm talking about AAA games.
It's not always going back to the Nib. Nib is a fire starter, if you guys haven't realized. That's going to be his new nickname.
But the thing with Nib is, that's a prime example. Where's the innovation?
Yeah, but I would say to your point, you've just emphasized the fact that it's actually not about innovation, it's about execution. Because your game of the year is not a very innovative game. In fact, it's basically essentially the deconstructed tool set of a Persona game, right? It kind of is, even though it doesn't have quite the same thing. It's like a twist on all the Persona.
Well, I mean, it's a Persona game without the high school. Right.
Exactly.
I mean,
Without the,
so-
it's like a medieval Persona game, basically.
Yeah.
So what I was going to say is, but it's still your game of the year, right? Out of the probably, what I'm guessing, 20, 30, 40, 50 games you've played this year, the one that is not innovative, but has great execution is your favorite, which I
Right.
would say is indicative of innovation not being the be all end all. Actually, it's just execution is what matters.
No, I'm on about in the general sense of the gaming industry as a whole, because it's like you look at the AA indie space, like AAA takes what they do and then they polish it, shine it, turn it into a gem, and add it to their game, right? That's shout out to as Sean Layden said when he said
Yeah,
it.
but what if it's a great game though, even if it's not innovative?
If it's a great game, it's a great game, and that's what we want. But I find more joy in the AA indie smaller game space right now. I
Yeah.
love my odd AAA game, but for the most part, I'll be like, if you made me choose, you were like, okay, I will give you, I'll buy you a copy of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, or would you like a copy of Age of Mythology? I would
So-
take Age of Mythology
I'll
every
tell
single
you
time.
why. I'll tell you why. Like I find that interesting, right? Sorry, not to, like you said, Firestarter, because Age of Mythology is not at all innovative as well. And
Well,
the
it's
other
not.
game,
It's a remake.
Yakuza,
It's a
Yakuza
remake.
Like a Dragon is also not innovative at all. It's kind of basically another Yakuza game. So there's a bit of a divergence on what you're saying and the games. Essentially, the
then
games you're picking.
But then again, the games you're picking is like Age of Mythology. I like it, but it's a game from 20 years ago, remade for today,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
it's just a paint and polish on a classic game. So of course I'm gonna love it because I played it 20 years ago. I'm gonna love it today. I'm gonna still do it. But when you see like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, they did make a lot of improvements compared to Like a Dragon, but fundamentally it is still the same thing. Yes.
So-
But if you notice Metaphor and that game, they're both AAA games. So we come back to what does AAA do versus what does AA do, and all those
But
games.
the reason, do you know the reason I brought it up is because you used FF7 Rebirth as a kind of an example of AAA being ubiquitous or safe, right? But I would argue, having played both to completion, Rebirth is much more innovative than Metaphor ReFantasio, because certain things it does, especially with with its card game, with some of the mini games and the Fort Condor one, which they've redone with all the tanks and stuff. Like, it has not only much more gameplay diversity and mechanical diversity, some of the games that it includes are very, very innovative, like, or unique. Maybe not innovative is not the right word, maybe unique. Like, there is nothing else like Queen's Blood, right? And it's a whole ass game that they've made with all these characters and all these moves and all these other things. So when I hear you say using 7 Rebirth as an example of the AAA game stagnation, I'm thinking it doesn't make sense to me, because the 3 games that you put at the top are much less innovative and much less unique than the one that you're criticizing, if that makes sense. So
But
that's
then-
where in my...
But then again, if outside of the mini games, it's like because again that comes back to Infinite Wealth has much better mini games than Like a Dragon, so there's innovation there. So we could call it same. But if you look at the combat, it's like how much of it is carried over from Final Fantasy VII. Also, bear in mind, big AAA companies can't afford to gamble for the most part. That's why you always see sequels to games, because they need the guaranteed moneymaker, and the guaranteed moneymaker is you look at God of War 2018 and then God of War Ragnarok, or you look at Horizon, the first Horizon, and then the other one. I can't remember their sub names. Zero Dawn and Forbidden West. There we go. Like, that's what they're gonna do. But the thing is, because they constantly do this, there's lack of innovation, diversity in what
come on,
game
but
companies
Yakuza...
make.
But don't you think
'Cause
Yakuza and Persona constantly do iterative things of the same thing for in much more frequency than Horizon? Like, let's just take Horizon, right? There's actually only been 2 Horizon games. How many Yakuza games has there been?
6, 7,
Yeah,
8.
maybe more, right? Include
No,
again,
because Lost Judgment is a spin-off. So
fine. But my point is, what you're describing is much more of an issue. Again, I really enjoy the Yakuza franchise, so I'm not knocking it. But Horizon could not be, accused of this kind of iterative regurgitating thing when there's only 2 of them, and you have robot dinosaurs. Which how many other games do machine dinosaurs of that ilk? Nothing, basically. So then you have Yakuza, which has done a similar formula for decades across like 7-8 releases, and yet you're saying Horizon is the one that is not innovative enough.
No. The example is I liken it to Take-Two, right? You think of Take-Two, they used to have all these games, like they used to produce so many different games, but now the only thing you really get out of them is your sports game, and you get whatever Rockstar makes. Like what?
But I think Yakuza is the sports games of JRPGs, though. Right?
Okay, yeah,
Every
okay, yeah.
2, 3, every So I would say Yakuza.
It's the sports games, but it's like the AAA space is like what makes money, and we're gonna stick to that, and we're not really gonna step outside the bounds too much. With AA, they have to throw everything at the wall and hope it sticks because that's their only option, right? Like it's a company owned by Microsoft, or a company owned by Nintendo, or a company owned by Sony. You have the backing. Where indie, you just have to throw it out there and hope to God that it sticks. Otherwise, you could find yourself out of business. So that's why I tend to find, you see, like the smaller games, like Rogue Company. You had, Baltro, small game. People absolutely adore it. It's like, would you get a Baltro out of a gorilla? Would
you wouldn't, but I wouldn't say Balatro is innovative or unique. So like the way I like it, because I know, like, I have this discussion with other people as well who are always talking up like indie games. I do agree indie games by and large are more unique and innovative because the budgets are different, the risk factor is different, etc. But oftentimes, like the examples they give, like someone was saying like Hades or whatever. But even in indie genre, you have so many sort of, not recycling, but certain genres are typical. Like, for example, side-scrolling, platformers and things of those roguelikes and things like that. They're very common in that sphere. And then when I look to like the AAA space, we do have examples of AAA innovation. I would say Deathloop, with its roguelike and all the way the story unfolds and interconnects. I would say Returnal, again, it's like kind of taking a top-down shooter but putting it into a roguelike. I would say stuff like Death Stranding. It is a UPS walking simulator, but with the strategy and everything and the social links and stuff. So I wouldn't say that AAA is devoid of innovation. It's just maybe not as frequent. But part of that is just volume, because there's such a high volume of indie games because of the numbers that are required, and you have a team of a few people can make an indie game, whereas a AAA game you need 50 to 100, 200, 300, 400, 450 people made Baldur's Gate 3. So I think that's the main reason we're not seeing it, is because it's an odds probability thing, right? If you're only getting a certain number of this type of game, AAA, but you're getting 1,000 or 500 indie games, naturally you're going to see more innovation because it has the volume advantage. So I wouldn't say necessarily that AAA game doesn't have innovation. I just think it's few and far between because there's fewer projects, and obviously the cost factor is different.
I'd also like to take a second here because neither of them take a second to breathe. They just continue to go. I do have to wrap up the show, guys. The rest of this conversation can happen on X. Follow these guys over on X, please. Desinger, let them know how to follow you over there, because you guys literally, I will say this much, you both made very good points. I would also like to say that you both said the same thing about 8 times. I think you have to understand that you guys have said the same thing.
There was many repetitions.
Yes, I'm like, I think we got that point. But Desinger, let them know where they can find you. And as always, it is intriguing to hear your points.
Oh yeah, you
So
can find me
good.
at Death Singer on Twitter and everywhere with my amazing takes. You know?
Yes.
You could also you can also find me playing the games that you don't want to play because I find enjoyment, and I will stand on this hill and I'll reiterate it again because I love doing it every once in a while. State of Decay 2 is a fantastic game. I don't argue with your mama about whether it's good or bad. It's a fantastic game. See you later.
Absolutely. And by the way, Nib is a legend. Impatient Fire says Nib is a legend. I completely agree. Great to have you both here. Just a couple quick plugs for everybody that had to leave earlier. The Great Crap Gamer, it's _Crap Gamer. It's Crap Gamer Reviews. Go over and check him out. Hopefully, Brap's back next week. I talked to Brap before the show. He had some stuff he had to take care of. That's Brap _podcast. The great Mr. Badbit, it's at Mr. Badbit on X, and I believe it's at Mr. Badbit over on Blue Sky as well. He wanted everyone to know. The Great Gaming Forte, and I believe Slow Mo Backslap went live at 9 p.m., which is now late. But tell Mooch that if you go over and see DPS podcast, it's at gaming _Forte, and the great Creative Kofi who gave his outro, and then he bounced. He was like, I'm going to get something to eat. I'll see you guys later at Creative _Kofi. Guys, we'll be back in 2 weeks. I might do something. If I do something, you guys will know. Of course, it's not going to be on Thursday of next week. It's Thanksgiving. It is Thanksgiving here in the States. So with that being said, We'll see. Yes.
If you do a Game of the Year podcast, have me on it, man.
Of course. Of course. Well, we are going to do a Game of the Year podcast. That's something we do every December, Nib. Absolutely. We will have you on. The great Death Singer will be here. We'll see if we can break YouTube's record. We're going to go for 17 hours. You guys better be bring a picnic basket. You guys are going to be eating. We're going to be here all night and drinking. That being said, guys, please hit the like button on the way out. Please hit the subscribe button on the way out. We will see you guys in 2 weeks. Enjoy the holiday if you celebrate it. If not, game, and we'll talk to you in 2 weeks. We'll see you right around. It'll be actually, let me see the holiday. No, it'll be the week before the Game Awards. So we'll still have a little more Game Awards controversy to discuss. That being said, have a great night, guys. Peace out and good night.
Good night, gents.
Good night.
That's